That's how it's gonna be, a little test tube.
It's most likely to be a highly infectious virus.
Guy steps out of Times Square station, smashes it on the sidewalk.
Welcome to Zero Net Review, a show dedicated to handcrafted studies of genre fiction. I'm author DC McNeil, and I'm joined by Patrick Laverne, a man cursed to keep his son alive at all costs.
And you know what? I have no compunction about killing anyone to do it. That's the lengths I'll go to protect my boy.
It's very brave of you to say kill in the first minute of this YouTube video. And as always, reintroducing J.M. Anderson, a stranger on the road who promises that he means well and offers you food, but we know something's amiss.
Yeah. If that happens, I think I'm straight up killing you. So that's where we are.
This
is dark.
Yeah.
Brace yourselves.
Brace yourselves. Welcome back to our continued study of the post-apocalypse genre, brought to you by the Zero Indent Patreon subscribers who help make the shows and articles that shape Zero Indent. What better way to escape our current hellhole than with fiction? And I've actually just checked my notes, and it says this week we're reading through the first 100 pages of Cormac McCarthy's seminal novel, The Road, described by my editor in our text chain as quote-unquote a real bummer. So that's unfortunate. And look, really quick, can't emphasize this enough. Very strong disclaimer for violence, rape, suicide, and just people being the worst. Cannibalism. If there's not really a disclaimer that can't really go in to this book, it really covers all spectrum. Disclaimer for roving hordes of those guys that are just from Mad Max. They're here too. War chiefs and whatnot. Zombies maybe, who's to say? Okay, before we get into the book, I've got a couple things I want to talk about, but the first thing I wanted to ask is, did your copies of the book have an introduction in there? Or does it just start straight with, like, the book itself? Have you got the Picador version, Pat? Yeah. So it should do. Did you not read it?
Yes. I think I did. No, I did.
Yeah, so I gotta be honest.
I read
does
all
it specifically say introduction? Because
yeah.
like nothing's... Okay, then no, I do not.
Yeah, it starts with all artists are unique, but some are more unique than others. No one else writes like Cormac McCarthy, and Cormac McCarthy writes like no one else. It's written by John Bonneville. And it sucks and shouldn't be in here.
I was curious to hear what you had to say about it.
Here's the thing. Okay, when people write about Cormac McCarthy, and I'll ask you guys in a second your experience with him as an author, because I'm guessing it's going to be wildly different to mine. One of the things that happens when people try and write about Cormac McCarthy's writing is they try and imitate Cormac McCarthy when they write about Cormac McCarthy, and I fucking hate it. There was an article recently by, and I'm now going to not have the person's name in front of me, Vincenzo Barney recently had a piece in Vanity Fair that got absolutely dragged for this exact reason, and we'll get to that later. But yeah, like, this section I thought was in particular quite goofy. In the Oprah Winfrey interview, how desperately one clutches at the few scraps of authentic testimony, McCarthy spoke of the seed of the novel, putting out its first root in the middle of the night, in an El Paso hotel room where he was staying with John Francis, who was then 4 years old. While the son was sleeping, the father stood at the window, gazing into the deserted... Shut the fuck up, John. What are you doing? Like, it's just so cringe. And he does give you some snippets. Like, I think he talks about the beginnings of the book, which is this single passage, which I think is, like, probably not true. Yeah, but, you know, as all authors, we print the myth and the legend, not the reality. And the section he references as the inciting seed or the inciting imagery is Cormac McCarthy standing in this, like, El Paso hotel room looking out at the swamp. And this is the passage that ends up in the final product. A dead swamp, dead trees standing out on the grey water, trailing grey and relic hang moss. The silky spills of ash against the curbing. He stood leaning on the gritty concrete rail. Perhaps in the world's destruction, it would be possible to see at last how it was made. Oceans, mountains, the ponderous counter-spectacle of things ceasing to be, the sweeping wastes, hydroptic and coldly secular, the silence. That's how Cormac McCarthy writes this whole book. Every single sentence, every single paragraph is this level of quality, and this level of, and this particular flavor of stylistics, which I think some people, have called it. On the back, Pat, does yours have the quote from The Guardian as well?
Yes, you will read on absolutely convinced, thrilled, mesmerized. All the modern novel can do is done here.
Yeah, so this is like often touted as the epitome of the modern novel, and when we say something like the modern novel, right, we're talking about in the mode of like what Flaubert started with Madame Bovary, that then continued on through kind of modernity, and then you kind of have the Road as the apex of what some people consider to be like the perfect modern novel, which is sometimes synonymous with like the American novel. We'll see how much we think that's true. Yeah, I guess give me, your guys' experience with McCarthy, if you have any, and yeah, like what you thought of the book, and then we might do some biographical stuff, and then get really stuck in. But yeah, I mean, JM, it's gonna take a really long time to unlearn the muscle memory of Darth. Being the American on the call, what's your experience with McCarthy? Because he's like the American author.
I have no idea what else he's written, so I am actively looking that up as we speak.
That's crazy. Really?
Which also doesn't necessarily mean much, because like as we've discussed before, like the names and things don't carry any meaning for me. Like I remember like songs. I have no clue who the artist is. And it's the same thing with authors and books. Like I almost never will remember who wrote the book, but I'll remember what the book is about. And then reading that Deirdre is not the right name, because that's a character from Star Wars. But
it's Dedra.
Reading think. But anyway, like reading that stuff about like assigning definition versus meaning, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's me. I do not care about definition. I'm like only exclusively about meaning. So like I could have read some stuff. Okay, No Country for Old Men. No, it's a popular movie, but haven't seen the film. So
That's
yeah,
crazy.
I have no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man, American education really failing even the Americans. Like even y'all's famous, because like this book is like did you get taught this book at in high school, Pat, or no?
Nope.
Damn. Okay. I mean, I did it at uni, but this is a really common one to get like taught as like a like what is a novel. It is a little bit dark for high school though, so I can understand why that sometimes doesn't happen. But yeah. Pat, what's your kind of McCarthy experience, if any?
McCarthy's been on my radar for a long time, so I'm glad we're doing this. Gives me, forces me to actually start on that. It's the first. The Road is the first one I've read. I like No Country for Old Men, the movie by the Coen brothers.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that that's a pretty good adaptation of the book. I'm very, very interested in Blood Meridian. I watched like this YouTuber Wendigoon talk about that book for like 5 hours once.
It's pretty crazy.
It's like everything that's kind of appeals to me. It's like set in like real history that's like not very known. It's like grimdark and bloody and just very, very nihilistic. Like, oh, say no more.
Oh yeah. Dude, yeah. Judge Holden, all-time villain.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, I'm excited to read about Judge Holden. Every time I see a picture of him, it creeps me out.
He's the worst.
Shivers down my spine.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, like reading this book, like I had a JM experience this time of reading so much because I was so invested in it, and then being like, oh, fuck you, David, I have to stop now.
Eat shit. I control your lives, boys. Never forget it. Can I be honest though? This is like every time I read this book, I have these two diametrically opposing thoughts in my head. The first is like, this might be the best written book that's ever been written by a human being. And also this might be one of the most boring books ever written by a human being. And both things are true at the same time. The force of the prose itself is so electric that like the fact that essentially nothing happens. Well, okay, that's not true. And this is why this book is a really good book to study and like talk about, is that like nothing happens. Three things happen in these 100 pages that we read, right? But like actually a lot is implied and a lot happens and doesn't happen, and it's very tricky to sort of unpack and talk through, because so much of it is being evocative and gesturing at things and making you go, hey, what happened there? Or like, what did that mean? It reminds me a little bit of like a Gene Wolfe, and there's obviously definitely a lot of that here. In fact, they end up using similar language, which I'll point out as we go through. But yeah, the quote I've got from before I do that, yeah, JM, what did you think of the book, or at least the part that we read?
I don't know how to. I have big thoughts, but I'm told I need to save them to the end, so I don't know how to answer that. Higher level, I really struggled with the prose, which now kind of breaks me that you're like praising it like the best thing that's ever written. I'm like, this is the most difficult thing I've ever had to read, because it's not, hopefully I'm not wrong, but like it's not written grammatically correct. It's written in like train of thought, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the entire time I'm reading, I'm stopping every 2 sentences and reaching for a red pen. And I'm like, I have to correct this. This is wrong. I have to correct the grammar. The grammar is wrong. I could not get out of that mindset to actually get into the story for like 20 pages. The prose hurt me. And like, I understand the draw of it. But also just probably just because I've been writing so much recently, it really hit me hard. Like, especially like run-on sentences and incomplete sentences and stuff. I'd have to go back and like, what is this talking about? You know?
Mm-hmm.
So that really took me out of it at the beginning, just the way that it's written.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of my point about like McCarthy. You know, in that introduction, the first thing they say is like, McCarthy writes like no one, and no one else writes like McCarthy, and that's for a really good reason. Like, these are hard books. You know, like it's like when you sit down to read a Gene Wolfe novel, and you have to like promise yourself that you won't stop and look up words, and instead sort of dig around for context clues or like what a particular section might mean or like might imply. And it's why I thought this would be really good for this show, because there are some scenes in this book. Well, I don't know what happened, y'all. Like, just truly, there's some scenes in this where I'm like, I don't know, like I know chronologically what is being told to me, but I don't know what it means. I think there's this passage from Vereen and Bell that nails exactly what Darth is talking about, with like the prose being difficult. And like, don't worry, we will read a lot of this book because I think it's really illustrative to do that. But this is a really good summation. So this is Vereen and Bell writing about the kind of the exact thing Darth is pointing out, right? The tension that exists within McCarthy's work, where the prose and the comprehension of the reader are like antagonistic to one another. Quote, "There is a powerful pressure of meaning in McCarthy's novels, where the experience of significance does not translate into communicable abstractions of significance. In McCarthy's world, existence seems both preceded and preclude essence, and it paradoxically derives its importance from this fact alone. The vivid facticity of his novels consumes conventional formulae as a black hole consumes light. He is Walker Percy turned inside out, intuitive, unideological, oblivious to theological fashions, indifferent if not hostile to the social order, wholly absorbed in the strange heterocosm of his own making." And then she goes on to say ethical categories do not rule in his universe. I think this is probably insignificant. This is one thing I want to highlight, and then we can really get stuck in. What I've just tried to illustrate there is how much people have written and talked about this book and McCarthy as an author for this exact reason, right? People like me are like, this might be the best book ever written, and then you pick it up and read it, and you're like, this is really hard to read, and I'm not sure if I'm enjoying the art of reading this thing that's in front of me. And like both are true.
The one caveat that I did not let myself form a solid opinion yet is that I do not know if this book is supposed to be written by the kid who doesn't know English and doesn't know how to write aside from the little tiny bits that he was taught before dad probably dies. So the broken grammar is part of the diegesis, maybe. So I was giving it a grain of... So part of me was like, just stick with it. Maybe this was done on purpose. And then the other part of me was like, so...
I mean, it's done on purpose, but it's not like it's not going to cash out in like a, and here's the, like, the purpose is the doing, right? Sorry, you go for that.
For me, actually, because I had some similar experiences at some points, you know, had to read a paragraph, went, what the fuck did I just read? And then I had to go back and read it twice more. But strangely enough, like, the lack of grammar and syntax actually made it like quicker to read for me. Like, you know, it's truly like a conversion of a stream of consciousness from like author to reader. I feel like I was able to blaze through it because of the lack of grammar. But also I have been pretty like intensely reading like the last year, like very difficult things. But yeah, like it was, I felt like it was way more effective that way. Because I feel like, I don't know, in a normal book, like, you're forced to cohere to the, you know, the structure of proper grammar and stuff like that, and you're always stopping and starting. Whereas, yeah, this one, it just like just flowed through me, kind of thing, and it was all the more better for it, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's that was my experience this time as well, and like I've read this book maybe a dozen times for that exact reason. Like, you can just pick it up, and it's so snappy. Once you get into it, I will say getting into it is hard, but like once you're over that hump, it's just like, you know, you're right there. You know, and this is probably useful. Just one last little biographical thing. So like authors like McCarthy are used in education in the same way that like Amor Towles or like Kurt Vonnegut are, right? Like, these are authors that you see a lot in tertiary writing programs for a reason. Right, you know, Towles might be deployed to demonstrate like stylistic clarity and like metaphorization. Vonnegut for like how to capture and deliver theme with like really simple, legible ideas. Like, I mean, Slaughterhouse-Five, right, is one of the most iconic, straightforward, like anti-war, pro-socialist novels that's ever been written. Whereas like McCarthy, because of the way that he writes, can be deployed in like almost like any number of ways by a writing program, depending on their priorities. I'll try and gesture at some of these popular deployments throughout our coverage here, probably a little bit more in our next session. But yeah, this book is like universally treated as canon by every writing program, and it only came out in 2005, right? But also, imagine being McCarthy and writing No Country for Old Men, and then turning around the next year and releasing The Road. Like, that's back to back. That's crazy to me. And I gotta say this because it's now known that as he's passed, when McCarthy was 42, he met and fell in love with a 16-year-old homeless girl, with whom he groomed, repeatedly had intercourse, and had a lifelong affair with despite being married, and managed to keep the secret for 47 years. As I said, you can read the Vincenzo Barney piece on Vanity Fair. It is dreadfully written, and Barney does an absolutely terrible job of interviewing the woman who's now in her 60s. It's clear that, you know, she picked him for a reason. And yeah, go read that piece. I encourage you to read it critically, and to think a little bit about how uncritically Barney, you know, presents the information. I don't want to dwell on it. Just disclaimer, worth knowing.
That's wild.
Yeah,
drops a wild story, and he's like, "We're not going to dwell on it."
Well, it's just a lot. So, and I'm not. There's a Siobhan Breyer Aguilera YouTube video where she covers the whole thing in detail. I'll link to it in the show notes. That's a really good resource to pick that apart. She's fantastic. Does a really great job of that. Okay, without further ado, Patrick, when you are ready, could we please hear the summary?
The man and the boy live in a pale, forgotten imitation of life. The world has emptied out, some great calamity slaying most people and graying the world with ash. The boy and the man travel across the blasted landscape, hungry, cold, not on the edge of death, but part of death at all times. They visit the rotting carcass of the man's childhood. The man wonders if he is strong enough to kill the boy if it should come to that. Finally, on the banks of a waterfall, reprieve. They find mushrooms and have one good, warm night in the harsh winter. The man shoots a stranger, and the pair flee toward the coast. We leave the man and the boy starving, forced to abandon their cart as they foray into the unrelenting white snow, certain to die of exposure.
Nice and really
I
uplifting.
suppose that is what happens.
Yeah. Well, it's tricky. It's tricky to write a summary because so much of what happens is the prose itself, right? I absolutely adore.
I was going to say that was another overall. I only had like 4 notes before my like big bit, and my other overarching thought was that this was the single most challenging, disturbing, upsetting, and uncomfortable thing that I've read since the opening chapter of John Grisham's A Time to Kill.
Fair.
So,
yeah,
I was legitimately struggling to finish this without like being drunk or something, you know? Like it hits you hard.
Yeah, it's pretty heartbreaking.
We'll get to it, but the conversation that he reflects on with his wife is some of the hardest things I've ever had to read. Yeah, it's brilliant. Okay, we got to talk about the opening passage because it's about 500 words all in all. And McCarthy does an absolute magic trick of setting tone and telling us everything we need to know about this book. Like the world is so hollowed out that it even like infects the father's like dreams and subconscious. He sort of sees this like monster by the water, but the monster like can't even really bother to be menacing because like it doesn't really need to. The world's already menacing enough on its own merits. This is I'll give you the 500 words because I think it's probably worth reading. And yes, this will just be me reading most of this book. I don't know what to tell you. It's just that kind of coverage. Here you go. When he woke in the woods in the dark and the cold of the night, he'd reach out to touch the child sleeping beside him. Nights dark beyond darkness and days more grey, each one than what had gone before. Like the onset of some cold glaucoma dimming away the world. His hand rose and fell softly with each precious breath. He pushed away the plastic tarpaulin and raised himself in the stinking robes and blankets and looked toward the east for any sign of light, but there was none. In the dream from which he'd wakened, he had wandered in a cave where the child led him by the hand, their light playing over the wet flowstone walls, like pilgrims in a fable, swallowed up and lost among the innard parts of some granitic beast. Deep stone flues where the water dripped and sang, toiling in the silence the minutes of the earth and the hours and the days of it and the years without cease, until they stood in a great stone room where lay a black and ancient lake, and on the far shore a creature that raised its dripping mouth from the rimstone pool and stared into the light with eyes dead white and sightless as the eggs of spiders. It swung its head low over the water as if to take the scent of what it could not see. Crouching there pale and naked and translucent, its alabaster bones cast up in shadow on the rocks behind it, its bowels, its beating heart, the brain that pulsed in a dull glass bell. It swung its head from side to side, and then gave out a low moan, and turned and lurched away, and loped soundlessly into the dark. I mean, come on. Starting your book with that shit? What? Hey, here's a question for you guys. what are we looking at? What's that thing across the ancient lake?
I don't even remember this, to be honest. I'm guessing it's a bear or something.
I ascribe no meaning to half of what is written here because so much of it is either just like appears to me just to be purely like metaphorical, or it is the dude just hallucinating from lack of food or sleep or water or something. You like everything is so bad that nothing is real is kind of how I ended up taking it. So at first I was like, oh, do we have some kind of like Fallout style mutants or something? And then I also immediately was like, it doesn't matter.
Can I tell you something? Maybe hold on to that idea of the Fallout style mutants. Because there's a thing that happens in this reading where I was like, yo, is that a straight up zombie? Yeah. Okay, this is a pretty good place. So I want to push on that notion a little bit. It's going to keep happening a little bit because whilst what you're saying is accurate, in that a lot of this you're not supposed to take it as literal. What McCarthy is choosing to have this man think about, reflect on, imagine, hallucinate, remember, if there's even a difference between any of those three things, that is trying to tell you something about this guy. Well, there's a couple examples that we'll talk through in the reading, but I think that it would be a mistake to dismiss something in this book just because it doesn't seem like it's really happening, or it seems like it's maybe half true or like a fragment of a memory, because those fragments of a memory are like building out the possibility space of like who this guy is, right? And just a very quick definitional reminder, because possibility space, right? That's what we talk about, is that when you first put words on a page, you're producing like a contour that like confines the thing that you're writing, and that's why a blank page is like functionally like a null object or null information. The second you put a word down, you're producing a possibility space. And I think McCarthy starting with this image is trying to tell us a lot about like what the vibe of the book is, more than just trying to give us actual information, right? There's really two things we learn. He's having real bad dreams, and he's with this boy after the world's ended. That's kind of like, informationally, that's what you learn. But it does convey a lot about where this guy's head is at. And yeah, maybe put a pin in like that question of like, is he straight up looking across this lake and seeing like a Fallout style mutant? Because it just is described a bit like a dude crouching there, pale, naked, and translucent. It's alabaster bones cast up in shadows. It's bowels that's beating hard. The brain that pulsed in a dull glass bell. Like, is he looking at like a Walking Dead style zombie with the brain half out? Do you know what I mean? So it's like something to maybe think about. What's the deal with
He's looking at a Wendigo, obviously.
Yeah, bro. Like what? I don't know. Who knows? So yeah, that's just sort of to put a little tension on that idea, Darth. I think it's worth acknowledging that while what you're saying isn't incorrect, I just would put that in tension with what the book is doing, and hopefully this coverage can help us get there.
Well, in the very next paragraph also, I think the way he describes the waking light is very interesting as well. He says, with the first grey light, he rose and left the boy sleeping and walked out to the road and squatted and studied the country to the south. Barren, sightless, silent, godless. He thought the month was October, but he wasn't sure. Like, godless is the most interesting thing there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
And you get hints throughout this first part of this book that he possibly was religious at one point, or maybe he still is. And yeah, it very, very like deeply frames how his experience with the world. So basically he's attuned to unreality, or like the supernatural things. Yeah,
absolutely. If he was like a Disco Elysium character, he'd have like 16 points and shivers, right? Like he's just like fully tuned into the world through these like this kind of paranatural sense, or this extra like he even at the end of that paragraph too, right, Pat? He said, if he is not the word of God, God never spoke. like referring to the boy, he says he knew only that the child was his warrant, right? It's like language of the saints. Yeah, the God thing is interesting. McCarthy was very religious, but as I say that in the same breath, he groomed and assaulted a 16-year-old girl. So like, people contain multitudes, and God is a thing that he thinks about quite often in his work. And there's a reading of this book that is deployed by, I almost said religious zealots, I meant Catholics. But it's deployed to kind of go, if there was no God, this is what the world would look like. You know what I mean? Like, this is what a godless world looks like. Without God, all is ash. Men they default to rape and murder and cannibalism if there's no God, right? That's like a reading that some people put forth of this book.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
I have 2 thoughts before we move on, if you're done.
Mhm.
One was, I started to say this at the beginning, but when you started reading out loud, that was a suggestion I was going to make if anyone listening is having trouble reading the prose, because when you read it out loud, it flows a whole lot more smoothly than trying to understand just the words in your head, whatever that connection is. And the interesting comparison is, I don't remember it offhand, but there's a Scottish poem that I absolutely adore. And if I look at the words, I have no clue what the words are saying. But if I put on the Scottish accent and I read it out loud, then I understand it. There's something about reading it out loud that helps with the understanding when it's difficult to read.
Yes. Well, I think that there's and there's a little bit of Tolkienalia in this book as well. That first zombie guy that we just talked about, like, I don't know, it's kind of like a Gollum type guy. Not as he's described in the books. Gollum's described like kind of crazy in the Hobbit initially. But yes, that is a quality of like a Tolkien, like, the Hobbit is a book that's supposed to be read aloud to children. This is kind of a book that feels like it's supposed to be read aloud to yourself, sitting in a dark corner at 2 a.m. On the verge of tears. Like, it's that type of book. The other thing that's tricky, and I'm sure we'll talk about multiple instances of this, is that the dialogue isn't formatted, right? There's no quotes. It's just in line with the prose, and it has this occasional effect of deliberately confusing who's speaking. This happens more later when they're in really tense situations, but
or if they're speaking.
Or if
several
they're speaking.
times I had no idea. Yeah. Was this in his head?
Hard.
Yeah.
Oh, that where he said this is the quote. He said, "If he is not the word of God, God never spoke." I don't know if he said that out loud. Probably not, right? But then at the bottom of the next paragraph, Pat, can you be the boy?
Mm-hmm.
Boy. It's from
okay.
So he goes, "This was not a safe place. They could be seen from the road now. It was day. The boy turned in the blankets. Then he opened his eyes."
Hi, Papa.
He said, "Darth, can you be man? Do you know where we are?"
I'm right here.
I know.
And all of that is like one line. Like, it's not formatted. It's not like sectioned off. There's no quotes or anything. So
wait, in your book, that's all on the same literal line?
Wait, hang on. My EPUB fucked up some of the formatting. Let me check.
they are paragraphed in the print.
Isn't that the only place where that happens? That's pretty rare though, right? From memory?
I feel like it happens both, but like generally it looks like this.
Yeah, they do. I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
I'll put it on screen. So that's like one of the first instances where they are, correctly into it. But okay, what's interesting about my EPUB then, because I've been alternating between the two, is in the EPUB they're not formatted at all. They're just always on one line, which I think does increase that effect. Like, because there's a couple conversations later that that are formatted correctly for me, but there's one in particular which is like I read it both ways, which is the conversation with the guy who he's about to shoot. I read that as the way it's formatted in the print, and then the way I have it in the EPUB. I actually think that works way better as not being formatted correctly, but we'll get there later. But just to call out, like, it can be confusing about like who's speaking. There's no attribution tags, there's no air quotes. It just has like a very particular effect. And to Darth's point, you're sometimes not sure if someone's saying something, out loud or not. And he also just uses.
It reminds me of in Dune where they switch point of views in the middle of a paragraph.
Oh my god!
Without
yes.
like any other context. You just have to know by how the character thinks that you're reading about that character's thoughts.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Or sometimes in this, it's like it actually doesn't matter who's saying it, and that's kind of the more impressive sections. It's where like there'll just be a conversation. You're like, yeah, it doesn't matter which of the two of them said that. Like it works both ways. But yeah,
I'm kind of curious if the on my page 5 when it says "Hi Papa, I'm right here," I know, and that is segmented, right? But then you go over another page and it's, "You could read me a story, can't you, Papa?" "Yes, I can." That's all in the same line.
Yeah.
So like the first one was segmented out to make it clear, but then after that, the next several little discussions are all on the same line and all mushed together. So if that was done, on purpose by the writer, and then on my page 10, and I think you're adding 4 pages for yours, if I remember correctly. On my page 10, it's a straight line down like Pat showed a second ago.
Yeah, we've got that as well.
I feel like the effect that produces for me is that like the ones where it's like no breaks, it's because it's not about the conversations, like they're doing something and they're talking while they're doing something, whereas ones like this are like just an actual just straight up conversation between the two. And like I feel like it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, they're kind of always it's in the way that like children are always fucking talking to you, like all the time. Like they never stop talking to you all the time. It kind of has that effect. Yeah.
And then it's all the more heartbreaking when the boy doesn't want to talk, and you're like, "No, please talk."
Yeah. Or the section where like the kid I'll save that because I think it's like a really interesting thing to bring up later. You go, James. You were gonna say something.
Yes, that's a perfect lead in, because I have zero faith that this child is real. I am fully convinced that this man is crazy and has invented the child in order to give himself something worth living for, and that's why the prose is written the way it is, where you can't tell who's talking because he's talking to himself this entire time. I am utterly convinced of it.
I mean, hey, look, that's a completely valid reading that I've heard before. Things that go into that reading: the wife was never real. The childhood memory is like a hallucination. Yeah, I've definitely heard that reading before. I don't think it's true.
And the bandits that he encounters are actually just like regular nice people, and he's the crazy bad guy.
Well, I mean,
I imagine that's how that reading goes.
Yes, I mean there is a really germane question of like, are those bad dudes? Well, we'll get there in a second. I've got a couple things I want to get to first, but yes, like that's like a totally valid way you could read this book. I don't think it's as interesting as what's actually here. And we'll talk about Derrida a bit later and Duff's thing about meaning, but yeah, that's just something to. It's interesting.
Also, that's the creature at the beginning. It's a moose.
It's a moose.
With the there are several indications of it moving its head back and forth. The raising the dripping mouth from the water. Because most humans, I think, tend to scoop rather than dipping their head in. So we're talking some kind of animal. The alabaster bones that it's talking about are the huge antlers. The white eyes, I'm assuming that the thing is poison from whatever the poison is that's in the water, because the dad says can't drink the water. So I'm putting all of that together, and definitively my statement is this is a dying, poisoned, maybe zombified in some manner, moose or elk or whatever type of deer creature that has antlers.
I think it's a Walking Dead zombie.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it's a Walking Dead zombie. Look, one thing to say is that, and this is to Darth's point about this being a hard book to read, is that like McCarthy, I keep doing this in my notes, driving me crazy. I keep writing McCormack instead of McCarthy or Cormac, and I don't know why. My brain is just wrong. But it's filled with
McAuthor.
Yeah, exactly. This book is filled with words being used wrong, or in ways that intervene on like understanding a description, and you know this is what McCarthy does, right? And this book is really him at the height of this particular skill set, and it's you would call this estrangement in like a writing class, right? It's some of the fundamentals of how you tell genre fiction and speculative fiction, and particularly other world fiction. I've talked a lot about Gene Wolfe's Book of the New Sun and the way that kind of penetrates culture to the point where McCarthy even uses a lot of Wolfe's language here. Like we get Kakajin and Catamite and Stolt Lamp, which is just lifted directly from Wolfe. They're obviously
What was that last one?
Stolt Lamp.
Wait, isn't it Slut Lamp?
Is it? Maybe I've just trained.
Yeah, because I read that, I looked it up. I was like, what the fuck is a slut lamp?
I might have transcribed it wrong. But anyway, that's from...
And it's a McCarthy invention, apparently.
There you go. Yeah, Kakajin, Catamite, fucking awesome words. So yeah, the other thing I would say is like, if you're reading along, like maybe don't look up words that you don't recognize, and try and sort of piece them together from context clues. I think you'll have a much more enjoyable reading rather than going, what does this word mean? Because like when you get that section where the Mad Max guys are going past and he just throws in Catamite, like you can kind of figure out what that word means from just like reading that scene. I think it's much more enjoyable as an exercise than just like Googling it, or DuckDuckGoing it, as it were. Now that they broke Google. There's pro tip for all artists out there. If you use DuckDuckGo, you can set in your browser like never show me the AI generated information, just always give me the actual search. 10 out of 10 feature. But yeah, so one of the other things that I just want to call out here, and then we'll get into the big plot point, or the two big plot points, is that like one of the things that most seminars and like most writing courses will focus on is this like societal norms argument, which is kind of deployed and repackaged by like so many different people. But the idea notionally is that and I think it's fucking dumb, but like this is not my argument, this is the argument they make, is that the boy and the man, like they like reject the quote unquote societal norms of the apocalypse, and that's what keeps them human, right? The fact that they don't kill the dog, well, the dog's never real, but that's not the point. They don't resort to cannibalism, they don't rape people, they don't murder people, and this argument is kind of deployed to be like, and they're sort of it's what makes them like good or whatever, which I think is tremendously silly, to suggest that like there's societal norms. Come on, that's so stupid to me.
The apocalypse meta.
Honestly, I find it very uncompelling, but I understand how you get there.
Okay, now I want to take a minute to call you out, because 5 minutes ago you were like, assume that there's meaning behind everything. Don't just assume that stuff is made up and not real. And then 5 minutes later, you're like, the dog's not real. The dog's not real. Definitively.
He explicitly tells us that, to be fair. And that's, you know how I know that, Darth? Because it's a word on the page where he tells us that information.
Well, yeah, but I don't believe him.
Okay, I believe the dog's not real. Let me say that then. Does that make you feel better? I'm not saying that it's ontological fact. In my truth that I choose.
Well, what about the kid? The other kid that he sees.
The other kid that he's... Oh, man, I don't know. I don't think the other kid's real. I don't know, man.
Nothing's real.
Nothing's real, man. It's all a simulation anyway. What's it matter?
Well, on the idea of societal apocalyptic norms and stuff like that, and how this idea of keeping their humanity in contrast to how everyone else has moved on. I think it's interesting how you would maybe assume that someone like the man would be carrying the torch of pre-apocalypse society, the values and the morals and the ethics and stuff like that. But his behavior throughout the book is actually the opposite. He seems to want to reject everything about the past and claim that basically that it's unimportant and that like the only truth is what you see in front of you, kind of thing. So like his belief is like, and his like conviction to like to look after this boy and raise him and treat him to be like a decent human being. That's just like coming from sort of like nothing, like the most innate like feeling of being human. Like it's sort of not connected to anything except maybe his religiosity or something like that. Yeah, I just found that quite interesting. Like how he abandons his picture of his wife and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that like his wife kind of I mean, we'll get to it in a second. I mean, there's a section I think perfectly illustrates this where this is what page have I got this on? This is page 8 in the EPUB. He lay listening to the water drip in the woods. Bedrock this. The cold and the silence. And okay, when he says bedrock there, he doesn't mean the thing they're on. He's talking about the world. He lay listening to the water drip in the woods. Bedrock this. The cold and the silence. The ashes of the late world carried on the bleak and temporal winds to and fro in the void. Carried forth and scattered, and carried forth again. Everything uncoupled from its shoring, unsupported in the ashen air, sustained by a breath, trembling and brief. If only my heart were stone. He woke before dawn and watched the grey day break, slow and half opaque. He rose while the boy slept and pulled on his shoes and wrapped in his blanket. He walked out through the trees. He descended into a grike in the stone, and there he crouched coughing, and he coughed for a long time. Then he just knelt in the ashes. He raised his face to the paling day. Are you there? He whispered. Will I see you at last? Have you a neck by which to throttle you? Have you a heart? Damn you eternally, have you a soul? Oh God, he whispered. Oh God. And like, yeah, like he's just hollowed out of all of these beliefs entirely in a way. And yeah, I think you kind of like you raise a really a pretty good sort of tension point to that argument, Pat, because yeah, it seems pretty clear to me that like he's kind of voided himself out of everything that isn't just this kind of obligation he has to keep this boy alive. And he seems to be wrestling with like, if he can't keep the boy alive, is he even strong enough to kill this kid if that's what it comes to? Is that something he could even do? Which is probably a good segue to the first big plot point, which is where, and he like literally explicitly, the boy asks if the boy was to die, like would the man want to go on living? And he says no. And then yeah, we get like the idea of things becoming like uncoupled. The man cursing God. We've already said that McCarthy was religious, and God is all over his work. And yeah, there's also a bit of like Tolkien here, as I already said, like the notion that like the grace has gone from the world, right? That there was like some crystalline past where like things were perfect, and now the light is going from the world, and like the elves are returning to the east. Like it's like a fallen age or something like that, right? And he gives us this memory of this like perfect imagined prehistory, which is this day of like his uncle on the lake. Yeah, I wanted to like kind of put that in conversation here because I think it's like you can tell. I know McCarthy knows what he's doing. He's read his Tolkien.
Yeah,
I very nearly put a quote from Samwise in the little thing that I wrote, by the way. So that's that's really funny that you immediately brought that up.
Great minds think alike.
There's a mythological tinge to his prose, and yeah, stuff about forgotten ages and memories long gone that will die with him, and
yeah. This did you have the lake section marked, Pat?
I didn't mark anything.
Damn, boy's just going free roaming, huh? I have no idea what page it will be for you. It's page 8 for me. In the EPUB. Let me find it. Hold on. Yeah, here we go.
12, bottom of 12.
That doesn't help because you have a different version than we do. Hold on.
If you have this version.
Oh yeah, it's 11.
11. Do you want to read it, Pat? From like there was a lake. That paragraph.
There was a lake a mile from his uncle's farm where he and his uncle used to go in the fall for firewood. He sat in the back of the rowboat, trailing his hand in the cold wake while his uncle bent to the oars. The old man's feet in their black kid shoes braced against the uprights, his straw hat, his cob pipe in his teeth, and a thin drawer swinging from the pipe bowl. He turned to take a sight on the far shore, cradling the oar handles, taking the pipe from his mouth to wipe his chin with the back of his hand. The shore was lined with birch trees that stood bone pale against the dark of the evergreens beyond. The edge of the lake, a riprap of twisted stumps, grey and weathered, the windfall trees of a hurricane years past. Trees themselves had long been sawed for firewood and carried away. His uncle turned the boat and shipped the oars, and they drifted over the sandy shallows until the transom grated in the sand. A dead perch lolling belly up in the clear water, yellow leaves. They left their shoes on the warm painted boards and dragged the boat up onto the beach and set out the anchor at the end of its rope. A lard can poured with concrete with an eye bolt in the center. They walked along the shore while his uncle studied the tree stumps, puffing at his pipe, a manila rope coiled over his shoulder. He picked one out and they turned it over, using the roots for leverage, until they got it half floating in the water. Trousers rolled to the knee, but they still got wet. They tied the rope to a cleat at the rear of the boat and rowed back across the lake, jerking the stumps slowly behind them. By then it was already evening, just the slow periodic rack and shuffle of the oarlocks. The lake dark glass and window lights coming on along the shore. A radio somewhere. Neither of them had spoken a word. This was the perfect day of his childhood. This the day to shape the days upon.
This is the day to shape the days upon? Are you fucking kidding me, Cormac McCarthy? That, like, and, like, you know, like, this could be the Shire, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's all here. This is the day to shape the days upon is such a fucking bar. I can't believe it. I'm never going to write a sentence that good in my entire life. It's so simple.
You know, I had the like exact opposite reaction to that section that apparently you did, because and maybe it was just because like my entire experience is tainted by the rest of the book, but like I didn't read anything in here that is remotely Shire-like. Like this entire passage of them rowing across the lake looking for firewood is as desolate and as cold and as lonely and as hopeless as the whole rest of the book. This was just before that happened. And so when he said this was the perfect day of his childhood, I was immediately like, okay, this is sarcasm and he doesn't even understand what happiness is or something like that. Because like there's nothing in here that indicates like beauty or chirping, you know, happy chirping birds, or like they don't sing or have fun. You know what I'm trying to say? Like there's no beauty depicted here.
Well, and then I think that you have to use that to ask yourself a question, right? Which is that because there was no beauty there on that day? Or is the end of the world so infectious that it's like hollowed the edges of his memories and like he can only imagine things through the lens of the apocalypse now? Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know,
Or
like, just to be honest.
Is living in the apocalypse just so despairing that like a banal day where like, you know, like nothing particularly beautiful happened, like that is the core memory that you cling on to and that you long for in, you know, post-apocalypse?
Yeah, or like you know, like most people have like a childhood memory that they'll like point to as like something like really formative that they kind of craft parts of their identity around and use it as like a focal point. And there's always a point in your adult life where you find out that like part of that memory isn't true, or that it's like details are wrong, or that you combine stuff incorrectly because you're a kid and like you don't really have a good, like your brain doesn't work really well as a kid. It could also be that, right? Like this could also be this may have been a formative memory for him before the end of the world. And it's lost all of the nice details about it. But also, crucially, this is a memory that is about older man and a boy doing something together, but the boy is silent. And what do we know about the boy in this story? He never shuts the fuck up until he does, right? And so this is also, I think, you could also read this as this is him taking a memory that might have been real and coloring it with his current desires, right? His current desire for this kid to not be a kid sometimes. Like, you know, like this kid is just a kid sometimes. He gets scared, or he asks difficult questions, or he talks when the man would prefer he didn't. And like, this is the opposite of that. This is like, it's perfectly calm. The man is in complete control of the situation and his faculties. They're achieving a clear task. Civilization's still here. So I think you could also put it in tension with his current reality as kind of like the opposite. You know, positionally, not literally, right? I'm not saying that it's not kind of desolate and like, you know, shot through with his melancholy, but like it's the opposite position in that, you know, in this he's being taken care of, he's respectful, the old guy knows what he's doing, you know. So there's something there as well.
I will push back on the talking bit because I think that this kid talks nowhere near the amount that an actual child in real life in modern day, not in the apocalypse, would be talking. Like, he talks so little that I was also like, this kid is depressed because he is not talking. So then when you were like, this kid talks too much, I was like, oh my gosh.
That's just particularly toward the end of the reading, which is obviously the bit I read most recently, right? Where it would make everyone's life easier if this kid stopped talking for a minute. But yes, I do know what you're saying.
Which I like that though. I like, because, you know, like in, you know, Walking Dead or whatever, like, or, you know, kids in apocalypse, they're always so traumatized and they've lost their childhood, you know. Where I feel like it wouldn't actually go that way. Like, yeah, you would have, you know, kids who are a bit more fucked up, but like they you know, they still want to play with toys and stuff like that. I feel like that's like a super like cool detail in this book, how they carry around a bunch of toys, which are, you know, like, you know, in every other apocalypse story with kids, you know, the parents are always like, leave those behind. You don't, and then the kid always like sneaks in at least one of their toys into their backpack before they go or whatever. Whereas this kid has a full trolley of toys and like he actually liked playing with them and stuff like that. Yeah, there's just like, it feels very real, it's just all the more heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's one of these things of like, yeah, it's a really good portrayal of a kid. Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
The next thing I've got is the I think I've got the wife earmarked. What's next in my notes here? Yeah, I've kind of got like this section from 12. I've got basically like 2 pages that I want to kind of put in conversation with this, because we kind of get just on the note of memories. We never get any, and I've actually written down exactly what Darth said. We're never provided clarity with memories as to whether they're real or not. He even calls them siren worlds, these dreams and memories. This is the little section where that happens. In dreams, his pale bride came to him out of a green and leafy canopy, her nipples pipe-clayed and her rib bones painted white. She wore a dress of gauze, and her dark hair was carried up in combs of ivory, combs of shell. Her smile, her downturned eyes. In the morning, it was snowing again. Beads of small grey ice stung along the light wires overhead. He mistrusted all of that. He said the right dreams for a man in peril were dreams of peril, and all else was the call of languor and of death. He slept little, and he slept poorly. He dreamt of walking in a flowering wood where birds flew before them, he and the child, and the sky was aching blue, but he was learning how to wake himself from just such siren worlds, lying there in the dark with the uncanny taste of a peach from some phantom orchard fading in his mouth. He thought if he lived long enough, the world at last would all be lost, like the dying world the newly blind inhabit, all of it slowly fading from memory. From daydreams on the road, there was no waking. He plodded on. He could remember everything of her save her scent. Seated in a theatre with her beside him, leaning forward to the music. Gold scrollwork and sconces, and the tall columnar folds of the drapes at either side of the stage. She held his hand in her lap, and he could feel the top of her stockings through the thin stuff of summer dress. Freeze this frame. Now call down your dark and your cold, and be damned. Brother, are you kidding me? The tone shift? Freeze this frame. Now call down your dark and your cold, and be damned. I've never read "fuck you" more clearly in my entire life than that sentence. Freeze this frame. Now call this is like a rap battle lyric. Now call down your dark and your cold and be damned. You know what I mean? It's just so good. But yeah, I think that like there is a big merit to like what Darth was kind of what Jane was saying at the start, right? Like he is saying some of this isn't true, or he's at least he's trying to push his memories away, right? He's trying to hollow himself out because he feels like if he can't do that, then he'll be kind of captured by the world of memory or something like that, right? That's kind of my understanding of this little section.
There's a line in here that I just noticed that is like the dying world the newly blind inhabit. And that ties back to the what I'm calling a moose at the beginning, which is described as having the pure white eyes of blindness. And I'm wondering if this line is supposed to also be indicating that, like, if you drink the water, it is the thing that is blinding people. And or is there some disease floating around that is blinding people and animals or whatever?
Well, he's certainly coughing up a lung, right? Like, all the time. Like, he's not well. Kid's not coughing.
True, but we don't have enough information. For whatever reason, I had always inferred that he had like cancer or like he had a medical condition that society no longer exists to treat. There's no evidence of that, but there's no evidence of of anything really. So, maybe it's because the kid's not coughing that I had that, that's why I inferred that.
Right, but we could imagine, we could do the work of imagining that this sort of coheres together into that he is resisting some kind of like, whether real or not, some kind of metaphysical infection, or some kind of metaphysical falling to the darkness that that like would make him into like kind of a zombie. Because we do see a guy later who's like kind of zombie-like, and he says we can't help him. So I don't know, but that's a thing to maybe think about or composite here is like, is there something that happens in the world now? Like, do people just, if they dwell in the past too much, do they go wrong and like lose their minds and go blind and become shuffling zombies or something? Right, that's like a thing to to think about.
On my page 15, I had this earmarked because he described the dark as cold and autistic. And I read that 15 times trying to figure out what he meant by that.
I have no idea.
I also remember reading that and I was just like, I'm just going to move on. I'm not going to figure that out.
Yeah.
I mean, I will repeat the thing I said earlier, which is like, I think some of this like doesn't mean a. This is so annoying. I'm just gonna use Derrida for this because it's gonna be too hard to do otherwise. He is trying to evoke a bunch of ideas and a bunch of feelings that aren't describable, and one of the ways he does that is by combining different words that don't make sense together, right? It doesn't mean like the actual sentence doesn't mean like it doesn't have a singular meaning, but it evokes a feeling. Now, unfortunately, that feeling is problematic, the way that McCarthy deploys it. But it is like trying to do something, right? It is trying to gesture at a notion. And like this book is full of that kind of gestural activity, where he's kind of going, let me jam some stuff together to give you the idea of the feeling of this thing, much more so than how a thing looks, or using conventional adjectives and verbs, right? But yes, I too do not have any idea what to do with that. I just think it's, again, one of those like, well, that's just McCarthy being McCarthy. His books are full of stuff like that.
Given the beginning of that, so the paragraph starts with him describing the blackness and that you cannot see anything, meaning you cannot see stars at night, and also that there's no sound at all, meaning there's no wind, no sounds of animals, nothing like that. So it's like the entire DNA of existence is broken, which kind of fits with autistic.
Yeah, like that's okay. You've just done the work of like, you've just done that work of like building a meaning from a thing that doesn't have meaning, right? Like that's what this book is asking you to do. Is going, how can I make this feel like something? And like, yeah, like multiple points throughout the novel, he kind of does describe the world like its DNA is unraveling and like it's kind of coming apart, right? Much more directly than like, you know, like saying like a Tolkien or whatever. And again, this is very close to like a Gene Wolfe, where it's like, yeah, there are parts of time and this world that the man and the boy inhabit that are just kind of dissolving, seemingly, both physically and metaphysically.
Yeah, I think this all connects to his to that passage before about you know, memory and his feelings toward like warm memories, stuff like that. I think. And you know, his sort of his super austere response to anything positive is to, you know, go, but you know, that isn't helpful in this situation. You know, we need to be on edge constantly, you know, be alert and cynical in order to, you know, have protective measures against everything and anything. I feel like that is like that is just the most intense trauma response that this particular guy is going through, and like I feel like a lot of his I feel like it maybe isn't a reflection of the world necessarily, like, you know, like that he knows that the world is like just forever doomed, and that's why he's the way he is. I think I just think a lot of the like his descriptions and interpretations of the world are just like, you know, the expression of a very like traumatized, cynical, you know, person. And it's like maybe not necessarily how the world actually is, but like I feel like a lot of the things he does and says and the way he thinks about the world is like just like indicative of like a response to super like intense trauma, basically.
Yeah, because it's clear that he lived through the end of the world, right? They kind of go through, and there's this really upsetting section, like to your point about like trauma, where they go through his like childhood home. I don't want to read anything from it because it genuinely makes me quite emotional reading through it. It's a very hard scene to read through, where the boy is kind of like, he's like, oh, like that's where I grew up or whatever, and the boy's like, yeah, we shouldn't go in there, and he's like, yeah, we won't, and then he goes in there anyway, and it's so harrowing to sit with, and after that he sort of this is him reflecting on that experience. In those first years, the roads were peopled with refugees shrouded up in their clothing, wearing masks and goggles, sitting in their rags by the side of the road like ruined aviators. Their barrows heaped with shoddy, towing wagons or carts, their eyes bright in their skulls. Creedless shells of men tottering down the causeways, like migrants in a feverland. The frailty of everything revealed at last. Old and troubling issues resolved into nothingness and night. The last instance of a thing takes the class with it. Turns out the light and is gone. Look around you. Ever is a long time. But the boy knew what he knew. That ever is no time at all. So like, even it seems like time has like left the world in some way. Or that like without these markers of civilization and without these like this old world, like even time has lost all of its meaning. And like, yeah, like to your point, Pat, like there's a kind of cosmic austerity that is like the way that he is dealing with this reality.
It's so hopeless. Like, okay, so I was thinking, comparing it to say Joel from The Last of Us, right? He's surrounded by, he's in an apocalypse. You know, it's been an apocalypse that's been going on for a long time, but his world is surrounded by like communities and like people that have rebuilt institutions, and you know, like you know, there's a lot of violence and fucked upness, but like people are making it work, kind of thing. Whereas in this world, we're yet to see anything like that, and I feel like that perhaps explains some of what's going on with the man. You know, like truly hopeless, like, you know, you're just waiting to die, kind of thing, and therefore his only charge and his only motivation is this kid, basically. That, like, what else is there?
Yeah, and he's like also wrong about some stuff, right? Like that's the other thing, right? Like he has this thought at one point where he's like, oh yeah, like, you know, all the gasoline went stale after like 5 years, and then like later on in this book, someone has working diesel fuel, right? Like his subjectivity is so tightly knitted with the prose itself that like it's almost impossible to conceive of anything that he thinks is being incorrect or like incomplete. Yeah, it's like
doesn't he just like straight up not believe the bandit when the bandit tells him like it's running on diesel, and he's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it is.
And that's like a really fascinating authorial move, I think.
To be fair, it like the engine was not running well, and it died like as part of the scene. So I was thinking that was not necessarily like they could have been mixing other fluids in there just to try to stretch it out, you know? So he's not necessarily wrong because the diesel ran out in the scene itself, you know?
Ladies and gentlemen, the most literal man on the planet strikes again. My point was not that particular. I'm trying to gesture toward the fact that like he's working with incomplete information, and he's convinced himself of this way that he's thinking about the world is the necessary set of convictions he needs in order to keep going. One other thing that I think is worth noting is, hey, has Emily St. John Mandel read The Road, by the way? Because she does a thing that is in direct opposition to The Road. So this, I've got this on, I think this is on 21 of the EPUB. He worked toward the morning with the fire down to coals and walked out to the road. Everything was alight, as if the lost sun were returning at last. the snow orange and quivering. A forest fire was making its way along the tinderbox ridges above them, flaring and shimmering against the overcast like the northern lights. Cold as it was, he stood there a long time. The color of it moved something in him, long forgotten. Make a list. Recite a litany. Remember. Right, so he's sort of... There's this one glimpse of beauty, and he suddenly goes, oh shit, I need to, like, mentally make a list of, like, things that I don't want to forget, right? And we get a little bit of that later, where he thinks about the terrible last night he has with his wife, and a bunch of other stuff. But, you know, this is the beginning of him actually engaging with his memory as, like, maybe not poison. But now, you guys, Pat, I know you started Section 11, the book, but you didn't. Did you end up reading much of that, or you just kind of like the initial bit?
No, I fell off it.
Okay. So there's a section that Mandel has that is written seemingly in direct opposition to this. And me knowing who St. John Mandel is, I'm fairly confident this is deliberate. So this is one of those moments in the book where it's not told from a character's perspective. It's probably Kirsten, but it's really not clear who's telling us this. Occasionally, in Station 11, the prosaic voice will break away from subjectivity and just kind of do stuff, and this is one of those. An incomplete list. No more diving into pools of chlorinated water, lit green from below. No more ball games played out under floodlights. No more porch lights with moths fluttering on summer nights. No more trains running under the surface of cities on the dazzling power of the electric third rail. No more cities. No more films, except rarely, when with the generator drowning out half the dialogue, and only then for the first little while until the fuel for the generators ran out, because automobile gas goes stale after 2 or 3 years. Aviation gas lasts longer, but it was difficult to come by. No more screens shining in the half-light as people raise their phones above the crowd to take pictures of concert stages. No more concert stages lit by candy-colored halogens. No more electronica, punk, electric guitars. No more pharmaceuticals. No more certainty of surviving a scratch on one's hand, a cut on a finger while chopping vegetables for dinner, a dog bite. No more flight. No more towns glimpsed from the sky through airplane windows, points of glimmering light. No more looking down from 30,000 feet and imagining the lives lit up by those lights at that moment. No more airplanes. No more requests to put your tray table in its upright and locked position. But no, this wasn't true. There were still airplanes here and there. They stood dormant on runways and in hangars. They collected snow on their wings. In the cold months, they were ideal for food storage. In summer, the ones near orchards were filled with trays of fruit that dehydrated in the heat. Teenagers snuck into them to have sex. Rust blossomed and streaked. No more countries, all borders unmanned. No more fire departments, no more police. No more road maintenance or garbage pickups. No more spacecraft rising up from Cape Canaveral, from the Baikonur Cosmodrome, from Vandenberg, Pestek, Tangshimura, burning paths through the atmosphere into space. No more internet. No more social media. No more scrolling through litanies of dreams and nervous hopes and photographs of lunches, cries for helps, and expressions of contentments, and relationship status updates with heart icons whole or broken, plans to meet up later, please, complaints, desires, pictures of babies dressed as bears or peppers for Halloween. No more reading and commenting on the lives of others, and in doing so, feeling slightly less alone in the room. No more avatars. Now, I'm not Emily St. John Mandel, but this to me is the most, like, obviously it demonstrates the difference in concern, right? Where McCarthy simply has make a list, recite a litany, remember. Mandel is willing to do this kind of indulgent exercise of kind of pinging all of these ideas of like things that are lost together, to demonstrate and evoke what makes society like a thing that's worth remembering and a thing that was worth doing at the time, and some of the beauty of it and some of the difficulty of it. And also I think for McCarthy, he's much more interested in the emotions and the evocation than the details. Whereas Mandel uses details to produce emotion and ideas. Yeah, I just thought that was fascinating. And she even gets in the dig about the fuel expiring as well.
I feel like in that passage with in the road with his wife, there's quite some sensory detail in there as well. Which, and I know that because I was just thinking that's not how my memory works at all. I don't remember sensory stuff. I just remember. Well, I mean, this is also just part of my fucked up brain that I just remember like sort of intense feelings and mostly negative ones. But who knows? Maybe if there was an apocalypse, maybe my memory would start to conjure up very descriptive, descriptive, elaborate sensory memories of things that don't exist anymore. Who knows?
Yeah, he has that like really specific detail about like feeling the like top of her
his wife's
stockings.
leg.
Yeah, top of her stocking through her summer dress, and I was like, that is. Well, this is interesting because my memory is very sense specific at times for like certain things, but it's usually coupled with like a really intense emotion. Yeah, like I was trying to think like one of the memories I have that's very very similar to that is like the first date I went on with the woman I was in a relationship with previously, and like I have to the point where I could write a paragraph about it, like the exact sense memory of an exact moment on that date. That it's just like, well, there's actually a couple moments that are like crystallized in my memory as like sense experiences. But yeah, I think maybe it's the end of the world. It's gonna fuck you up, man. You know, it's gonna make you think different. It's gonna do a number on you. You know?
And I think that's probably right. I think that you would think those things.
Yeah. Darth, thoughts, vibes?
I will say that the experience you describe is quite common, as I understand it, in humans. It's not everyone that is so that memory is tied so closely to your senses, like Pat just said. But my brother Eric and I talk about that quite frequently, that like every once in a while we're like, hey, do you remember the smell of Aunt Connie's the pool room where the pool table was? And we're both like, yes, I remember what it looked like, but I remember what it smelled like. And then because he was a much weirder child than I, and I'm not normal, but he's also like, do you remember what clock radios used to taste like? Because he was really his senses were like that important to him.
That's listen, if you're out there and you're considering publishing E.S. Anderson, don't let that dissuade you. He's mostly normal now. He's the normal enough guy now. To my knowledge, he's not licking radios still.
Yeah, well, with 3 kids, there's no telling. He might need to do what he needs to do to get by.
Yeah.
But point being that this is interesting to point out, because from a like memory training perspective, or even if you're trying to go back and remember things from your childhood or whatever, if you can go back to the place, if grandma's house was like near the beach, if you just like go to a beach, then the smell will be familiar enough that it will help you more easily access those memories, because our senses are so closely tied to that. I had at one point I had a product idea that was like memory in a can, like the reverse air spray cans that you use to clean. If you just go to a location and it's like a little vacuum in a can, and so it sucks up the air from the place, and then when you're trying to remember, like, I can't remember Granddad's house anymore, it was like torn down 30 years ago, you go spray a little bit and all of a sudden you get the whiff of what his garage workshop smelled like, and that triggers all of your memories.
There's a product like this in the Watchmen graphic novel.
Oh,
it's like some aerosol perfume called Nostalgia, and it's like you huff it and you go, you have like this nostalgia euphoria.
Yeah. I like the way that Darth described it, was like the psychopath version. Because that's not how scent works either. That's so funny. Sorry, I'm just I'm processing. Because you know what it would smell like after 30 years? Nothing. It would be air. It would be musty air. Because the particles would deteriorate. Like the chemical bonds, like you wouldn't... it's very funny.
I've got some R&D to do on it, granted. I haven't found my financial backers yet.
Oh my god. I'm just imagining you like spinning it off and being like, yeah, we're selling Uncle's spare room candles now. Oh, fucking hell.
Well, yeah, actually, no, that's your business idea. You get a scent that's fresh, and then you replicate it in the lab, and you turn it into a candle. Bespoke scent candles, yeah.
That
doable.
surely already exists.
Yeah, it probably does.
Yeah. Go onto a website, build your own candle. You know what I mean? And we're doing a double wick because we fancy like that. You know what I'm saying? I ain't doing any single wick candles.
And then smell-o-vision is just around the corner after that.
That's true. Yeah, and then next we'll get the nose telescope from Futurama. I got one more section I want to touch on before we take a quick break. Do you guys have anything before the one good night they have at the waterfall?
Well, just that there was something on page 9 which just really broke my heart. That was the child says, "What would you do if I died?" And then Dawn says, if you died, I'd want to die too. So you could be with me? Yes, so I could be with you. Okay. That's so sad.
Yeah.
Why'd you make me read this book?
Yeah. There's a bit later on where the boy's like, I really want to be with mom.
Yeah.
I was like,
God.
oh my god. Yeah.
That bit where it is her leaving, is that already past the point where we are?
On. That's later on.
Okay.
Yeah, so
that's the next thing.
Yeah, we get because there's like 3 things that happen right before the big action sequence, that are all like directly causally related, right? So the first thing is they're walking back. They have this one good night where they sleep by a waterfall and they find mushrooms, and it's like really peaceful. It's still freezing, but there's one thing to say that we haven't said out loud. It's the middle of winter and they're constantly cold. It's constantly raining and snowing. They're always on the verge of starvation. They're always on the verge of freezing to death. They have this one good night by the waterfall, and you get like a little bit of wasteland survival guide type thinking from the man, where he's like, oh, like we can't stay here too long because the waterfall is like an attraction that'll attract other people, and like it probably already has, and like he does this apocalypse calculus that I thought Darth would enjoy. It was very literal and logical. And after that, they're walking, and they come upon like a figure in the road, which is what prompts the man to throw away his wallet, including the picture of his wife. The description of this guy is really important, because this might be a zombie. Right, that's just to say that out loud. This is on. I've got this on 32 of the EPUB. They backtracked and camped in the actual road, and when they went on in the morning, the macadam had cooled. By and by, they came to a set of tracks cooked into the tar. They just suddenly appeared. He squatted and studied them. Someone had come out of the woods in the night and continued down the melted roadway. "Who is it?" said the boy. "I don't know. Who is anybody?" So this is probably the truck that we're about to see later on. They came upon him shuffling along the road before them. This is the man's tracks in the burning tar. They came upon him shuffling along the road before them, dragging one leg slightly and stopping from time to time to stand stooped and uncertain before setting out again. "What should we do, Papa?" "We're all right. Let's just follow and watch." "Take a look," the boy said. "Yes, take a look." They followed him a good ways, but at his pace they were losing the day, and finally he just sat in the road and did not get up again. The boy hung on to his father's coat. No one spoke. He was as burnt looking as the country. his clothing scorched in black. One of his eyes was burnt shut, and his hair was but a nitty wig of ash upon his blackened skull. As they passed, he looked down, as if he'd done something wrong. His shoes were bound up with wire and coated with road tar, and he sat there in silence, bent over in his rags. The boy kept looking back. "Papa?" he whispered. "What is wrong with that man?" "He's been struck by lightning." "Can't we help him, Papa?" "No." We can't help him. The boy kept pulling at his coat. "Papa?" he said. "Stop it." "Can't we help him, Papa?" "No, we can't help him. There's nothing to be done for him." Now, it's probably not a zombie, but it's fucking devastating. It's just
And I'm
rough.
I'm just gonna ruin that entire tone, because now that we've got you going, Papa, I want to get the other clip of you going, "Are you my mummy?" And I'm
Are
just
you
gonna
my
put
mummy?
those back to back and have David going, "Papa, are you my mummy?"
Very confusing attribution. He's saying some weird shit these days, y'all. 2026 really got to him.
Well,
Yes.
no, it's this book. I'm trying to find something to laugh at, so there you are.
it kind of is a bit like that, isn't it? Where you're like, man, any humor would be great. Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Well, I mean, this is sort of darkly comic. Like, is getting struck by lightning in the apocalypse. Like, that's fucking unlucky. You know.
Well, okay. Here's the thing. Is that what happened? Okay, so I've thought about this.
Yeah, the description sounds pretty accurate.
Well, whether he was actually struck by lightning or if the forest, like, because there's a forest fire, right? That's been raging, because that's what he was having his moment of beauty about before. My theory about this, if you want it to feel less absurd than being struck by lightning, is that the forest was struck by lightning, which set it on fire, which is what eventually consumed this guy, is the fire. And the man literalizes that to he was struck by lightning. And he could also, you could also read that as him being like, yeah, this is the most unlucky son of a bitch to be caught in the forest during this forest fire. He's struck by lightning, using it in the expressionistic sense. Or he was literally struck by lightning. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like that's not implausible. Because they're traveling along the highways and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And like it's likely that you're the most elevated thing if you're walking on a stretch of highway. I find that I can see that happening. And people do get struck by lightning.
It's yeah. I mean, I personally, my personal belief, because he comes stumbling out of the forest, and there's already melted tar. My theory is that he was in the forest and was either struck by lightning or was caught up in the fire. But it is also really funny to imagine him, like, you're just like a guy. You're like, fuck, man, I survived 5 years of the apocalypse. I'm on the road. I'm doing my and then just like bang out of nowhere, struck by lightning. You rolled like a 1 on your luck saving throw.
Also, the other thing is that if you're trying to do good by this kid, you should have at least put on a show of helping that guy. If you want to care about raising that kid good, you should have at least done something.
Do the
I don't know,
House
man.
of Cards thing and just put him out of his misery, like opening shot with the dog.
But then the difficulty is that he's only got 2 bullets left, and he needs those 2 for exactly the thing that he keeps reflecting. Oh yeah, true. You could always strangle the kid. Oh, strangle the man. It's dark that I went to strangle the kid.
We don't kill kids. We've talked about this time and time again.
We don't. The Zero Dent Review and the Zero Dent Company does not officially condone murdering children. And it's crazy that we have to keep saying that, but it does come up somehow every episode. I choose to think that he's playing this like he's he's the main character in like a stalker video game, where like the energy that would be required of him to stop and help this guy would mean that he would probably starve to death because he's only got enough food to get him to the next location to loot to find food. Like he's playing a survival horror game. He can't be stopping to help people, man.
Well, it's also more of a risk, because even this dude's got no energy left, right? That's why he's just sitting in the middle of the road. But if you start actively killing him, then he biologically will get enough of a burst of energy to potentially hurt you. So it's more of a risk to try to put him out of his misery than it is just to let him die naturally. What I think is interesting, if I'm allowed to be really literal, the guy's shoes, it says that they're wrapped up with barbed wire, which would take away the like electrical isolating rubber and would fully ground him to the lightning. So where he might not normally be struck, the fact that they have a line about him wrapping his feet with metal kind of makes the lightning more believable.
Yeah, do you think that like Cormac McCarthy just like was at the bar one day and someone was telling him a crazy story about someone they knew getting struck by lightning because they like had like metal on their feet or something? You know what I mean? Or like
Yeah,
it kind of has that vibe.
It sounds like something that happened.
Yeah, it's real warfare energy.
My immediate thought is like for ice, so you can get
Ice.
grips and stuff like that.
Oh, that makes so
Oh.
much sense. Yeah, like snowshoes.
Well,
I've heard people doing that. Yeah, like making makeshift snowshoes out of barbed wire. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, why he did it, because initially I thought, at first I was like, what, is that just holding his shoes together? Because that seems like you could have found something else that was maybe, less painful than walking on barbs. But for ice, it makes absolute sense, yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't. That's a really good. This is what I'm talking about with this book, where it's like, again, this scene when I first read it, I was like, I don't know what happened there. Like I can tell you what happened, like when I write the summary, right? But like I don't know what happened, and like any of those things could be true, and that's just delightful to me. It's probably the thing Pat said, but you can choose to read it in a number of ways.
It's also interesting to point out that the dude was so maybe his like entire nervous system was like shutting down because his like feet were melting into the molten concrete and he just kept walking. Like he didn't sense the danger like the man and the boy do, and they stop and wait for it to cool, but he's just walking through and leaving his footprints. And so you got to imagine the shoes were probably melted to his skin at this point,
Yeah, that's kind of how I imagine it as well. And yeah, this is what prompts the man to finally take his wallet out and leave it behind. So he basically carried it the whole time. And then he's took it out and went through the contents, his money, credit cards, his driver's license, a picture of his wife. He spread everything out on the blacktop, like gaming cards. He pitched the sweet blackened piece of leather into the woods and sat holding the photograph. Then he laid it down in the road also. Then he stood and they went on. And then this is the prompt of him throwing it away. And there's one other thing I want to talk about. Then we can take a break and come back and talk about the wife and then the conclusion of this reading. The next page, or it's a little bit further down, I actually have no idea what this paragraph means. Like, just legitimately. They stood on the far shore of a river and called to him. Tattered gods slouching in their rags across the waste, trekking the dried floor of a mineral sea where it lay cracked and broken like a fallen plate. Paths of feral fire in the coagulated sands. The dark figures faded in the distance. He woke and lay in the dark. Is that...
Yeah, I remember reading that as well. Like, what?
The first time I read this, I was like,
He has
are
some
they...
sort of vision.
Yeah, I was like, are they standing across like a river and like there's like they're yelling at zombies? Is this like what does this mean? I have no idea. Like what figures?
I think it's supposed to be the huge pillars that would go down into the water normally, and I'm reading it like the water's gone and there's like cracks of cracks of lava or fire or remains of fire or something like that down there. But it's also so ambiguous. I'm like, it could all just be in his head. But if it's not in his head, then I would go bridge pillars.
Well, I think it is a dream, right? Because it says he woke and lay in the dark. So my thinking was, so that the best I can do is that I think this is maybe him. When they say they stood on the far shore of a river and called to him, the him is the fucking zombie from the opening paragraph. And the boy and the man are the tattered gods slouching in their rags across the waste. Tracking the dried floor of a mineral sea where it lay cracked and broken like a fallen plate. That's the road that they're walking on, right? The dried floor of a mineral sea where it lay cracked and broken like a fallen plate. Dried mineral floor, that's literally what roads are made of. Paths of feral fire in the coagulated... I've got no fucking clue what that sentence means. The figures faded in the distance. He woke and lay in the dark. Again, I don't know who the figures are. But there's something you can kind of put together there.
Yeah, this is just like the dream sequence you have in episode 2 of an abstract manifestation of his beliefs and his experiences and his fears and hopes and all that.
I'm so excited to watch this film and talk about it with you guys for the Patreon, because the film adaptation of this, could you imagine reading this book and being like, and now I will adapt to a screenplay? Like, bro. You got Denis Villeneuve on call? Like, I don't know who else could do it, you know?
Yeah. What is the film? Who's in it?
It's... fuck, I'm gonna have to look it up. I've forgotten. Let me see.
There's someone popular like Christian Bale or something.
It's Viggo Mortensen.
Or is it Martin Freeman?
Oh, Viggo.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I always forget that. Yeah, it's post Rings Viggo. And it's John Hillcott, director. I don't know that you guys would know Hillcott. He did Lawless, The Proposition. Yeah, you guys probably don't know Hillcott. And the screenplay was... Oh, the screenplay was Joe Penhall, the Mindhunter guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Weird filmography for this dude. Yeah, he writes... Jesus Christ, what a career. He writes Enduring Love, Blue Orange, The Undertaker, which is like the short film about the wrestler. Moses Jones, apparently wrote 3 episodes of Moses Jones. Then The Road, then Mindhunter. Bizarre.
Good on him.
All right, sure. Anyway, that'll be a fun discussion, because yeah, I haven't watched that film, and I'm curious to see what they do with this material.
I want to jump back before we break to the wallet little paragraph part, because it seems to take place maybe days later, because it says that like the mountains have faded into the distance or something like that. So it's not like, I don't know that it's actually at all supposed to be tied to the lightninged guy who just died. So I don't necessarily know what prompts him to take out the wallet and get rid of it. Although the only thing that really is significant is that he leaves the picture of the wife as a sacrifice to the road, which is very poignant.
Yeah. Well, it also might have also happened like before. Like, because he says, then one day he sat by the roads. Temporally, this could happen anytime. He carried his billfold about till it wore a corner-shaped hole in his trousers. Then one day sat by the roadside, took it out, and went through the contents. Doesn't say like days later or like this could have happened anytime, but it's causality in this book is not cause and effect. Like, it's not material cause and effect. It's like he thinks a thing or remembers a thing or feels a thing, which then prompts the next thing to happen, right? So when I say that this is what causes him to do this action, whether he's doing the action at the same time or he's just thinking about when he did that action, that relational the relational space between the paragraphs produces that continuity of like thought and ricochet, right? Like he's thinking about this moment when he did this, right after this thing with the man happens. It doesn't actually matter if the thing happened directly afterwards or not. Do you know what I mean?
Which to me matters much less than the picture, why you would get rid of it, and what that signifies. Because it very much could signify like the point at which he gives up total hope. If he's leaving the mother behind, and he just had a litany to himself, remember something good, recite it to yourself, and now he's putting down the only physical memory that he has, and he's giving it up. Yeah. But also leaving it for someone else to find along the road, for her to help them along. Maybe.
No,
So like there's,
I think
and he doesn't give it to the kid either.
Well, he does regret that later.
Oh, okay. Well, good. I haven't got to that, but good.
He does think about that later, and he goes, "Oh man, I really shouldn't have fucking done that." But no, this is 100%. So this is kind of the end of the first act. Is this moment where he puts the photograph down, because it represents him being like, "We're fucked." There's no hope. And I think seeing the man is what makes him think. Like, I think he sees himself in that man. And all it would take is a single freak accident or a single bad day. It's like in that St. John Mandel section where she like reflects on the fact that like, yeah, if you just like cut yourself making dinner or like get a scratch, that could be you, if you get the wrong infection type thing. And I think this is him giving up. And then the rest of this reading that we did is him gradually giving up more and more of his belief that they're going to make it. But yes, very poignant image. Cool. Okay, well, I think anything else on that, Darth? See the gears turning.
No, the next thing I wanted to talk about was directly before flashback, and he's talking with his wife, and he's saying we're survivors, we're the Walking Dead in a horror film. It's like right before that.
Yeah, cool. Okay, I've got that marked as well. All right, Pat, anything else?
Nope.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back to talk about the most dire conversation you could ever have with your wife.
And when we come back, I have an aside that we're going to do before we get started, and it'll lighten the mood a little bit and help us get through the next half of this. So,
good stuff. All right, stay tuned. We'll be right back. If you like these handcrafted studies of genre fiction, please head over to zeroindent.com or patreon.com/zeroindent if you'd like to consider supporting us. Even if you just give us a follow on Patreon, that helps us out. Leave a comment, a like, and if you're in a financial position to do so, you can support us and get access to early content, additional videos, director's commentaries, audio diaries, and all kinds of different things we have coming up. It really makes a difference helping keep independent media crit alive. Once again, that is zeroindent.com or patreon.com/zeroindent if you'd like to support us. All right, welcome back. JM, you had a thing. You're gonna somehow lighten the mood, as if that's possible.
Yes, I think that you might have a story that you have been waiting for someone to remind you to tell the audience. So would you please tell us about being recognized at...
Oh my god, yes, I knew I would forget. This, okay, well, I'm gonna have to bleep the name of the place, because I don't want to blow up the dude's spot, but, I was away, so we went to the beach for the holidays. It was part of what I did when we were on break. And on the last day, I drove to a couple breweries on my way back to pick up some beer. And I had lunch at one of these breweries, and I walked in, and, started chatting to the guy behind the bar, and he he clocked me. Like, he looked at me really intensely, and then tried to be really casual. And I was like, that's weird. Started chatting, no dramas, didn't think anything of it. Get my beer. He's the owner of the place, super nice guy. Aside from that weird interaction, I'm like, oh, whatever. Yeah, have a bit of a chat, order some food, have him a lunch. And I'm just bashing away on my tablet. And I look over and he's sitting at a table, like a couple over. And he's got a laptop open where he's typing and like doing some inventory stuff. And then he's got like an iPad that's like on a stand that he's watching something on YouTube. And initially I don't think much of that. And then I kind of like, I go up to get another beer and I sit back down. And he's fully watching an episode of the After Artists podcast. And I was like, that's really weird. And then I start to get in my head about it. I'm like, what if he didn't? Right? There's no way that's a coincidence, right? So eventually when I go up to basically like do some takeaway beers, he goes, oh, yo, I just wanted to say, like, I really like the podcast. And I was like, oh, man, that's sick. Like, that's really cool. He goes, yeah. Blah, blah. And he names, I won't name the person because I'll make more work for myself in the edit. But he names someone who recommended it to him that is an author that I know. And I was like, God, that's wild. Walk away, and two things I didn't think of in the moment. One, should have got a picture with the dude. didn't even occur to me. And two, it didn't occur to me to like say thank you or any, like, I just completely socially fumbled the whole exchange, but it was very odd. And yeah, so it's funny because he must have clocked me, been like, oh, I think that's him, and then pulled up YouTube to confirm, right? That's in my head. Probably what happened. So yeah, there you go. Thank you if you're listening. Shout outs. Thank you for a good chat. And it was nice to meet you, man. It was yeah. There you go. That's my feel good story for the day, is me bungling a social exchange with someone who enjoys the pod. Yeah. So the next section I really had is the piece where he's sort of reflecting on his wife now that we've had this thing with the photo. There's an initial conversation where they hear what seems to be whatever caused the end of the world. I've got this on 34. This is directly below the section we were just talking about before. The clock stopped at 1:17, a long sheer of light and then a series of low concussions. He got up and went to the window. What is it? She said. He didn't answer. He went into the bathroom and threw the light switch, but the power was already gone. A dull rose glow in the window glass. He dropped to one knee and raised the lever to stop the tub, and then turned on both taps as far as they would go. She was standing in the doorway in her nightwear, clutching the jam, cradling her belly in one hand. What is it? She said. What is happening? I don't know. Why are you taking a bath? I'm not. And this is him, obviously, collecting water, because you're supposed to do this in any situation where you think the water's going to stop. You want to gather as much as possible. Patrick and I would be aware of this because we had our cyclone last year, and everyone and their mum does this kind of thing, preparing for these sort of things. So that's a fun. I just thought that was a fun detail of, like, we don't really know what caused the end of the world necessarily. Like, I have theories, but like, there's no real way to know for sure. And I like that we don't get an answer here. It's just a series of concussions. I mostly don't know if that's what's caused the end of the world, or if that is in response to the end of the world, right?
And wasn't there an earthquake that they experienced right before this?
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Which, I mean, could just be an earthquake, but also it's like pretty close to the passage with the flashback scene, so it could be related.
Do you guys have a theory of, like, what happened? Caused the end of the world yet? Or you've got enough to put that together?
I imagine it's nuclear winter just because there's so much ash.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I went.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jam?
I had assumed rockets falling because a long sheer of light followed by a series of low concussions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's 2005, right? Like, this is peak weapons of mass destruction. You know, the culture's just about to turn on Bush. Wouldn't surprise me if that's been in the air, you know, as part of the conversation. Yes. Grim stuff. And then, yeah, this is buttressed by their first encounter with the people in the truck. What else did I have? Oh, yeah, like, we get the birth of the kid. I don't think there's much that I want to, like... There's not a lot here. It's just no list of things to be done. The day providential to itself. The hour. There is no later. This is later. All things of grace and beauty, such that one holds to one's heart, have a common provenance in pain. Their birth in grief and ashes. So, he whispered to the sleeping boy, I have you. This is him sort of... yeah, him reflecting on why he's still alive, I guess. Yeah, how he thinks about the past world, right?
Okay, so interjection, because you have just read out the page that I have double dog-eared and bracketed and starred, and you read the exact passage that I had wanted to talk about.
All right, well then go off, King. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. That either means that I have exquisite taste or you've ruined my taste. I can't tell which.
Well, the ironic thing is that I'm probably just reading it completely out of context, but the context that it wasn't related to the kid in the way that I was reading it. It was about just kind of more of like a living life to the fullest kind of take.
Explain yourself.
So there's no list of things to be done. The day providential to itself. The hour there is no later. This is later. And I don't know, at the time when I read that, it just like hit me really, really hard. And I went out writing that day. I sent a couple of pictures if you want to put them in the video, but I went out to like this local coffee shop, and I got this like beautiful sugar cookie and had that while I was writing. And like the whole time I've got this going through my head, and I'm like, there is no later. This is later. Like this is the time. This is the moment. You're living in the moment. Have the cookie. And then I came home and cooked fried chicken and waffles.
That looked
and,
so good.
Like I've been eating like salads and eating like pretty well, but I'm sitting here and I'm like reciting this passage in my head, and I'm like, there is no later. This is later. Have that. Have your chicken and waffles and enjoy it. And like I could not get this passage out of my brain, and it was something totally different, I think, than having anything to do with the kid, the way that I was interpreting it.
That's interesting. I mean, Pat, what do you reckon? Because I have a thought here that is the most counter to that reading that one could possibly have. But yeah, do you have a view?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just more to do with his nihilism and the idea that I was talking about before about how about the contradictory idea of him finding conviction and purpose in going forward and looking after this kid while also simultaneously like sort of abandoning his ties to the past. The day providential to itself, like a self-referential meaning, like, there is nothing to do except what we're doing right now. Nothing to look forward to, nothing to motivate us from the past. I'm just doing what I'm doing, which is looking after this kid, and there's like there's no cosmic reason for it necessarily. There's no relation to big meanings. But it also comes just before the passage about him abandoning his wife's picture on the road as well, which I feel like adds to that. Honestly, it's all in all it's a pretty nihilistic passage, I thought.
Yeah, it's really it's
heart have a common provenance in pain. Like fuck, it's basically saying like, oh, and when it comes down to it, all we have is pain. That's just like the driving force of life.
yeah, and that like everything good that's ever happened was birthed from pain. Yeah, I could. It's really funny that Darth is like, yeah, carpe then diems, bro. Like it's hey, there you go. That's a really good example of death of the author, folks. Look, yeah, the other thing, that this, I had saved this for later, but here is sort of a, maybe a good enough time as any to, maybe I'll bring it up with the wife a little bit later. But yeah, like, I think that just to earmark this as a thing that we'll talk about in a second, this is maybe also McCarthy reflecting on or, putting hautology into this book, right? The Derridian notion of hautology, which is this sort of notion that the kind of the lost potential futures haunt the present, right? And he talks a lot about the way that mass capital produces the notion of it feeling like history is ending, and that's like a new thing that's happened. And that the future has its providence in everything that was and everything that could have been. I'll talk about that more later, but I just want to sort of put a little like pressure on this passage in that regard. This idea of the day being providential to itself, the hour, right? Like it's sort of there's no external factor, right? Everything is like contained within what was and what could be. And the man is haunted by all of these lost potential futures that he can never have, and he ends up viewing everything as coming from pain and being their birth in grief and ashes, right? Like it's everything is born from grief and ash now. Like everything good is gone from the world. Again, calling back some of that Tolkien stuff. But extremely funny that Darth was like, yeah, this is like real put a pep in my step. I think that's a really fun like. Yeah, like the words on the page matter, and that like how you think the world matters and how you interpret text, and that there is like no correct reading of any given thing. Like it's a completely valid reading for Darth to be like, yeah, like a carpe diem, like this is giving me some drive. Or you could have the opposite where you're like, this is so dire that I need to live my life now because fuck, it could be so much worse. I think there's different ways you can get there.
Well, it's also notable that that definition depends on your spot in life. If this were like my high school days, I don't think I would have read that at all the same, because I didn't need to seize the day to do what I was enjoying then, because like I was in a spot where I fully understood what I was supposed to be learning, and I was supposed to be getting ready for employment, and this, like, I understood it. But now, like, everything is focused on like, how do I build this career, and everything is looking towards the future. And so I've lost track of the providence of the day, right? Like today I was sitting on the back porch and it was gorgeous outside, and the sun is shining and it's finally warming up, and I'm sitting there and I'm writing for hours, and like I just want to sit here and take a nap, and I'm not letting myself. I have to be working. I have to be looking at the future and building a future, and then eventually I'm like, go take a walk. So I went out and I walked in the woods and walked on this beautiful trail by the creek, and I'm sitting here. I'm like, this is today. There is no later, But if I'm like massively successful in a career, a year from now, I wouldn't have that same thought or that same need or that same reading of that text.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's because those sort of those tendencies and those habits and that ability to be present is like gradually eroded by the pressure that capital puts on you as a person to be a specific type of productive, right? And it can be really tricky to kind of unburden yourself from that. And we all go through phases of like being able to do that easily, being able to do that with great difficulty. So yes, I hear what you're saying. It's difficult. And yeah, like, hey, this is just some free advice. If you're not already walking while you're listening to this, go for a walk today. You'll feel better. Every single time. I went for a big walk this morning after the gym. Feel about $1 million. I'll get to about 6 p.m. and everything will ache, but worth it. Yes.
I was going to go for a walk after this.
You what?
I was going to go for a walk.
Yes, go for a little hike on your trail. Mm-hmm.
Man, I'm trying to find. There was like this really pithy. I mean, there's a lot of little pithy sentences in here, but there was one about. He's like something about the potential futures that could have been, and whether that's like a construction of like him viewing the past, or whether it was something about him projecting out into the future from the past. Man, if I could find it, it'd be great. But I feel like that really linked to what we were talking about before.
Let me see if I have it marked. I don't think I do.
Could have marked it.
Some of my comments in the marginalia are just in all caps, yikes, and holy shit, and oh my god, this sucks. That's very funny. I don't remember writing that at all. It's probably to do with the dog and the woman, probably, would be my guess is where that is. Yeah, I don't know. Man. Yeah. All right. Well, the next thing I have is the cursed conversation with the wife, which I've got on 57. Do you want to be the wife or the man, Patrick?
I'll be the man.
Okay.
What? 57?
57 from Where Survivors.
Oh. Should I do the narration bit as well? Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, may as well. I'll do.
Well,
Well, here's the thing: is
okay.
It's tricky because it's technically not. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
It is tricky. I feel like I should just read this out.
Okay. Yeah, but it's going to be confusing. Who's saying what?
All right.
You do everything but the woman's dialogue. How about that?
We're survivors, he told her across the flame of the lamp.
Survivors?
She said, yes.
What in God's name are you talking about? We're not survivors. We're the Walking Dead in a horror film.
I'm begging you.
I don't care. I don't care if you cry. It doesn't mean anything to me.
Please.
Stop it.
I'm begging you. I'll do anything.
Such as what? I should have done it a long time ago when there were 3 bullets in the gun instead of 2. I was stupid. We've been over all this. I didn't bring myself to this. I was brought, and now I'm done. I thought about not even telling you. That would have probably been best. You have 2 bullets and then what? You can't protect us. You say you would die for us, but what good is that? I'd take him with me if it weren't for you. You know I would. It's the right thing to do.
You're talking crazy.
No, I'm speaking the truth. Sooner or later, they will catch us and they will kill us. They will rape me, they'll rape him. They are going to rape us and kill us and eat us, and you won't face it. You'd rather wait for it to happen, but I can't. I can't.
She sat there smoking a slender length of dried grapevine as if it were some rare cheroot, holding it with a certain elegance, her other hand across her knees where she'd drawn them up. She watched him across the small flame. We
used to talk about death.
She said.
We don't anymore. Why is that?
I don't know.
It's because it's here. There's nothing left to talk about.
I wouldn't leave you.
I don't care. It's meaningless. You can think of me as a faithless slut if you like. I've taken a new lover. He can give me what you cannot.
Death is not a lover.
Oh, yes, he is.
Please don't do this.
I'm sorry.
I can't do it alone.
Then don't. I can't help you. They say that women dream of danger to those in their care and men of dangers to themselves, but I don't dream at all. You say you can't, then don't do it. That's all. Because I am done with my own whorish heart, and I have been for a long time. You talk about taking a stand, but there is no stand to take. My heart was ripped out of me the night he was born, so don't ask for sorrow now. There is none. Maybe you'll be good at this, but I doubt it. I lost my place. Hang on. But I doubt it. Who knows? The one thing I can tell you is that you won't survive for yourself. I know because I never would have come this far. A person who had no one would be well advised to cobble together some passable ghost, breathe it into being, and coax it along with words of love. Offer it to each phantom crumb, and shield it from harm with your body. As for me, my only hope is for eternal nothingness, and I hope it with all my heart.
He didn't answer.
You have no argument because there is none.
Will you tell him goodbye?
No, I will not.
Just wait till morning, please.
I have to go.
She had already stood up. For the love of God, woman, what am I to tell
I
him?
can't help you.
Where are you going to go? You can't even see.
I don't have to.
He stood up. I'm begging you, he said.
No, I will not. I cannot. Yeah, the next paragraph as well, because it's...
Okay.
Yeah, there's a sentence in there that is an all-timer.
She was gone, and the coldness of it was a final gift. She would do it with a flake of obsidian. He taught her himself, sharper than steel, the edge an atom thick. And she was right, there was no argument. The 100 nights they'd set up arguing the pros and cons of self-destruction with the earnestness of philosophers chained to a madhouse wall. In the morning the boy said nothing at all, and when they were packed and ready to set out upon the road, he turned and looked back at their campsite, and he said, "She's gone, isn't she?" And he said, "Yes, she is."
Whew. I mean, it's an absolute heat. I mean, first of all, dire, really dire stuff. But that paragraph afterwards is just incredible. The edge in atom thick is a description, and atom thick is something that's a real McCarthyism. The 100 nights they sat up arguing the pros and cons of self-destruction with the earnestness of philosophers chained to a madhouse wall. Damn. Just like the idea that this is the argument they have like every night is, well, they've had this argument 100 times and he just can't convince her. Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Yeah. But there's a lot of things going on here in terms of like the reality of what's going on. So first of all, she was pregnant, right? And then they have a kid at the end of this story. Is it their kid? That means they were there for like years and years. I don't know if you describe that as hundreds of nights. I suppose you would. But there is also this part about person who had no one would be well advised to cobble together some passable ghost, breathe it into being, and coax it along with words of love. Offer it each phantom crumb and shield it from harm with your body. So
is the boy real?
Yeah, is the boy real? Yeah. And also it talks about where are you going to go? You can't even see. So more evidence about blindness. So seems to be some concrete things about what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that bit is just because it's nighttime and there's no starlight or moonlight.
Oh, okay. All right. But yeah, I mean, they have a kid, and he's talking. Is it their kid? I don't know. So many questions.
This is a perpetual question that people have about this book. Is like, is it even his kid? I don't want to breeze past the thing that Darth just said, which is like the blindness thing in nighttime. There's like, there is something happening there at like a thematic level with the fact that at night there are no stars and that there's this like notion of blindness. And we start the book with like this blind, zombie man slash deer or whatever. And that, like, you know, the night that she does this is a night where it's so perfectly dark that they can't see at all. There's something there about, and the ash and stuff like that. Like, I think that, you know, there is something in the collision of those two things as the same thing, of like blindness and finally not being able to see the daylight represents like all of the goodness going out of you in some way, which is what the man is fighting against in his dreams. And that's kind of what that imagery at the start of the novel seems to communicate to me, is like, if you can't tether yourself and keep the light, then you'll go blind and you'll become this, you know, hollowed out thing without desire, aka maybe a zombie or something, you know?
I think that's what the darkness represents, but the blindness seems to very specifically be his blindness in his unwillingness to accept reality, which she is pitching. You are blind. We have to leave this life because that's all the only real choice that there is. That seems to be like the direct blindness, whereas darkness is like the loss of hope.
Sorry, I wasn't being like literal in that exact usage of the word blindness. I was more just trying to draw the fact that she uses the word blind there into conversation with the fact that the creature at the start is seemingly blind, and that's like a thing that's being thought about a lot.
But it's me, so I am being literal.
I know. Like vintage JM right there. All right, should we talk about the truck? Is that what you guys have next? Or?
No, there's a couple lines in there. So she says, "I am done with my own whorish heart, and I have been for a long time."
Mm-hmm.
The only way that I've been able to interpret that is that she is saying that she has been selling her heart, which means her existence, to these two people, and she does not want to keep selling herself for their benefit. Like, the only reason she's been kept alive is because she's been whoring her heart out to her family, which is a horrible way to express that. But is that how you would read that sentence?
Come at it from the other angle, right? What she's saying, because she says, like, think of me as a slut, you know, if that makes you feel better, like, you know, I've given myself to death. Like, death is my lover. She's having an affair with death, and it's finally time to stop pretending that she still wants life, right? And wants to be with the boy and the man. She's finally giving herself over to the affair entirely. That's what.
Okay, that makes
saying.
more sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the next confusing sentence was right after that, where "my heart was ripped out of me the night he was born, so don't ask for sorrow now." The only interpretation I could have is that that was somehow tied to the end of the world and not tied to the literal kid, or she has like the worst, what's the post-traumatic stress is not the right word, but the
postpartum depression.
Thank you. So she has like the worst ever, where she's like years down the road, because the kid's old enough to understand and full sentences and all this stuff, right? So he's like 4 or 5 or something, maybe, I don't know. So she's been around the kid for like that long, and she's still not over that depression. So what was it about this kid being born that was the point that ripped her heart out of her?
I imagine it. If you give birth to any kid during an apocalypse, you'd carry that postpartum depression pretty hard, especially this apocalypse.
Yeah. Well, also that she kind of look, I mean, just to be honest with you, she is correct about a couple of things here, where she's like, look, and I think it's like genuinely heartbreaking. She gives birth to a kid whose destiny is to be raped and murdered. Like, that's gonna fuck you up permanently as a person, right? They will rape me, they'll rape him, they're gonna rape us and kill us and eat us, and you won't face it. Like, that's That's pretty devastating. And it's true, right? Maybe not the specific guys that are in the van, but certainly when we see that group of like Mad Max dudes going through the wasteland, they have catamites. They have like child sex slaves. It's a thing that is happening. So like she's kind of correct as well. My reading there is, yeah, it's like giving birth to this kid is basically cursing him into this reality, and that just like has it completely destroyed any humanity or love she had left in her heart.
So my biggest issue was that I want to rewrite on the mom herself, because like the biological attachment of a mother to a kid is like the strongest force in existence, you know, and it doesn't exist here. And then having a line in there that like, when you were born, my heart died. Like all of that, none of it makes sense unless everything is talked about not literally, and she's retroactively thinking back, and the whole thing is like metaphor, you know. Then it kind of starts to make sense to me.
I would say that like this kind of like this exact the feelings that this woman is going through are like not necessarily even like unique to an apocalypse. Like people like I've heard of like women going into real like deep postpartum depression from bringing a kid into this world, you know, and the same feelings of like despair about like, oh, you know, what have I done kind of thing. Like, you know, it's basically, you know, the idea of it's cruel to bring any life into this world that has to navigate it. So, I mean, that completely makes sense to me. Like, yeah, if you in this setting.
Yeah, and not to be the perpetual like ecosophy guy or whatever, but like the ecology of the world and the social structures around you can dictate your responses to things. And like this is the worst possible like societal ecology to be surrounded by, and so it informs her view and her socialization of how she views this kid. You know, biology is such a vanishingly small component of psychology and behavior that like it's just it's noteworthy to me that like this is just personal experience, right? I know a lot of people and have, you know, been in a lot of adjacent situations where that biological thing that you talked about between like parents and children just doesn't exist. There are some parents where they just don't feel that. And like the other thing to say out loud, just because it was on my mind before, is there's also a thing that can happen called like postpartum psychosis. It has a particular terminology for it. But my friend actually experienced that when she had her kid, where like for no reason she was convinced that her husband was gonna like leave her, and it was like a complete delusion. There was obviously no credible information or anything like that, but just complete psychosis caused by the trauma of having given birth. That being said, I think Pat's right on the money. It's the kind of it's so upsetting to have brought a kid into this world, because the other thing you have to remember is she was pregnant during the night the world ended. She was already pregnant. So this is the potential future of this kid. It would be different. This is my reading, right? It would be different if she had the kid, if she got pregnant, after the end of the world, right? That would be an informed situation that she's walking into. But she was pregnant before the world ended. So like that future for her kid, that life for her kid is just gone. Like everything, all the expectations, all the things that she wanted for her son are erased instantly by the end of the world, and then she still has to give birth, and he's cursed to this wasteland, right? Like that would be pretty upsetting, to say the least. And she
also like there's some you can imagine some the relationship as well between man and wife here, like, and based on what you know about him in this story, you know, like his plan was to just basically just like keep on living just because, just like in a like possibly in their apartment where they're hunkered down, you know, for the rest of their lives, not doing anything. And to him, actually, that's a plan, you know. And like I feel like, yeah, that sort of, and you know, she's clearly very not on board with that. I feel like there's a lot, there's many things compounding here if you want to look into it.
Yeah, I actually hadn't thought about that. That is a good point. Like, what does his version of life look like, and why is he doing it? And it's like, well, because that's what you do. Like, you live because you have to keep on living.
And you know, you like with the religiosity as well, like you can't kill yourself. Like, so what else is there to do? Like, the path of least resistance is to just be a little fly on the wall forever, which is not a way to live. You know.
It might be that what I'm seeing is just like earlier when we talked about the use of the word autistic to kind of describe how everything had broken from the normal reality that nature understands. Because like even in real life, it's typically, not all the time, but typically the man that leaves and the mom that forms the stronger bond and keeps the kid. So the fact that this is intentionally the opposite is jumping out to me as some kind of message for the mom who typically has the stronger bond to have nothing, but for the dad who would probably love the wife typically more than the kid, but then he's also got that I don't know. This, depending on how much you think biology plays into your relationships. Anyway, that's where I land. The whole thing just comes off as like intentionally backwards, and I don't know what the author's trying to depict by it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the like if we set like the gender essentialism stuff aside completely, it is really like that. It's what Pat said, right? Is that she feels this immense guilt and the weight of the situation they're in, and that she has to remove herself from that equation to avoid further suffering. That's the simplest explanation I can provide. And that the end of the world changes every equation that you've ever had in your head about everything. That's the other lever this is pulling on. Is that all of the maths that you do and have ever done is now completely and irreversibly changed by this thing that's happened. For McCarthy, anyway. I'm not saying that. That's what the book is saying. Yeah. Sort of the anti-Emily St. John Mandel type approach to the end of the world in a lot of ways.
It really is.
Okay. Good detour. Lots to think about. More questions than answers, as always. Okay, so then we got the encounter with this dude and the truck. Do you guys want to? Who wants to? We don't necessarily have to read it, but yeah, does someone want to step us through this? How do they think? Well, what happens here? Is he correct in his immediate assessment that they're lying? Like, yeah, what's your guys' reading on this scene?
Yeah, well, it's a traveling group of just men, which is kind of sus. Like, it's a I reckon he's totally correct in his assessment. It's all. I mean, probably this is like credit to McCarthy's imagination, because it's nothing necessarily about what they say. It's just like the feeling of like what they're doing. The guy who, he sees the gun pointed at him by this guy, and his reaction is just like, it's one of, he's super calm, and that to me is like it's because he knows that he should expect that because that's what he does to other people, kind of thing. Like it's like, yeah. And then also the fact that he just straight up tries to like grab the kid and use him as a hostage and all that.
Yeah.
I think he's totally right in his assessment of these guys.
Yeah, this is an encounter that I had in the original DayZ. You know what I mean? Is you turn a corner and there's a guy with a gun on you and you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like I wasn't chill out, dude. And he's like, oh man, you've been following me. You're gonna kill me and take my stuff. And you're like, me? I would never do that, dude. Like after trailing this guy for 15 minutes, planning to shoot him and take his stuff.
Meanwhile, you're messaging your friend on Discord like you got a line on this guy.
I'm on the voice chat. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, yo, I'll keep him talking. Get round back. Like we, many such encounters. Yeah, and then so he shoots him. They got this truck. He offers him food or whatever. He's like, oh, you can come with us. Da, da, da. Guy doesn't trust him. Shoots the guy. Him and the boy run away. And eventually they come back and the guys seem to have cleared off. And did they eat the guy he shot?
Yeah. I think that's what it
I read that and went, oh my god.
No, it overtly well, it says that the bones had been boiled. So yes.
Yep.
They put him in a pot, made him into a stew.
Yep.
Yeah, and they gutted him. All his offal was just bunched up in where he was. So
it's just, yeah.
Yeah.
Not a shred of joy to be had in this book, my friends. And like he has to take the kid like under a bridge and like try and clean the blood from his face or whatever. But the water's freezing cold, and so the boy's just like shaking the whole time.
Yeah, it's so distressing.
Yeah. It's brutal. And then this begins the kind of and the big other thing that happens is they have to leave their cart behind when they run, and the guys basically take all their shit. Save for like a couple of toys and some rags and stuff. Which means that they are fucked. Like all of their food, most of their stuff. And so this is kind of the beginning of like the end of this first section is them just being, this is like, do I pull the gun out time? Is kind of where this reading leaves off, really.
It's the lack of guns so far is quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was America. Where are all the guns?
I mean, probably melted in nuclear fire, Pat.
Okay.
That's my guess. Well, the bigger question is the ammunition's the real issue, right? The guns is like, yeah, they could be everywhere, but where would you get the fucking bullets, man? Because those, your Walmarts are gonna get looted like week one. Like I don't know. It's tough out there.
And even then, the like old style muskets, I don't know that they needed as much care and everything because you kind of loaded up the thing and then it brute forced its way out. But with the modern guns, you've got all the mechanisms in there that you're supposed to disassemble the gun, clean all of the parts, oil all of the parts, put the gun back together. You can't do that for X number of months after the apocalypse. Oil runs out, the clean rags run out, all of that stuff. Like guns would stop functioning maybe even before ammunition runs out.
That's another fun JM gun fact. Thanks, America. I love the way that he reflects on this. I have this on 48 where he goes, this was the first human being other than the boy, 48 in the EPUB. So closer to like 60 or 70 in the print. This was the first human being other than the boy he'd spoken to in more than a year. My brother at last. The reptilian calculations in those cold, shifting eyes. The grey and rotting teeth. Claggy with human flesh. Who has made the world a lie, every word. Bro. He's got fucking human flesh in his teeth? He didn't tell us that when he was staring him down with the gun. Like, shit.
That's what I've been searching for. Like, I knew that I read that somewhere, So when like you were questioning it, when you were questioning the dad's reaction, I was remembering that line about the teeth, and I was like, he instantly clocked that the dude was a cannibal. He was just trying to figure out, how do I kill him without alerting the rest of the people over there?
Yeah, this is some like sick subjectivity stuff where it's like he notices something, but his internal like dialogue doesn't narrate it, so we don't get to know it until he reflects on it later. Some real Gene Wolfe bullshit right there. I love stuff like that. It's good.
But also, this could be what his wife was talking about. Like, the only thing that exists now might be cannibalism. So, like, it might be that if you see a human, they are going to try to eat you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Well, I'm kill you or rape you or both. Yeah, those seem to be the two verbs left over. Yeah. Anyway, this is tough to think about. What do you... Pat, you're kind of the history god guy. What do you make of the way that he sort of... I know that I've got more of the Catholic stuff than you do with the Lives of the Saints and stuff, but what do you make about like the way that he has... So the man, as he's reflecting on all of this, because like he says to the kid, like, now you know what bad guys look like, we're not the bad guys. And he says, I was appointed to do that by God. Which like kind of isn't true. Like his wife burdens him with looking after the kid, not God. Like, yeah, what do you make of that as a provocation?
She didn't ask him though. I'm just saying.
No, I said she
like
burdened
she told
him. She burdened him. She like hangs the boy around his neck like a weight and says, "Carry this weight. It will keep you alive."
Technically, she says kill the weight is what she technically tells him.
Yeah. Well, she's like, yeah, I don't even know if you'd be very good at this anyway, which is an unnecessary drag.
Okay, so he says that he got burdened by God.
Yeah, appointed.
Boy.
My job is to take care of you. I was appointed to do that by God. And I'm just thinking, because initially you mentioned, because God comes up in the first couple pages as well, and like, the kind of world is emptied out and it's like a godless wasteland now.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like that pretty like, centrally positions his motivation throughout of the book. Like I feel like it explains, his behavior about abandoning everything material about the past, and like like his relationship to the external world is only mediated through a religion and like a faith in the cosmos, and like there is nothing, there is no structure or history or institution that's building to anything in this world. It's all hopeless. It's run by cannibals. The cannibals are going to eat each other, and then they'll perish along with everything else. The one thing to do, which is like sort of the only good thing to do, in the eyes of God, is to take care of this kid, make sure he survives, make sure that you sort of you raise him to not be a killer rapist. And yeah, I feel like that sufficiently explains everything about his motivations, really.
Yeah. Nailed it. Yeah, that's kind of where my head's at with this as well. It's what he has to tell himself. Like, he has to convince himself this is true. What's really curious is that right after this, he carves the boy a flute from a piece of roadside cane. And then the boy starts to play this, like, sort of formless tune, where he specifically calls it a formless music for the age to come. or perhaps the last music on earth, called up from out of the ashes of its ruin. Once again, McCarthy, unnecessary bars, fucking sick. But like this is the first thing that either of them has done this entire time that isn't survival. Is he carves a little flute. And it comes off the back of him reaffirming to the boy, like, yeah, we're the good guys. And then later on, the boy even takes out a toy and like starts playing with a toy or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, even though they're about to starve to death, in theory, this act of solidarity of him reminding them that they're the good guys, unlocks some avenue for like joy or not joy, but like an avenue for doing something that isn't purely productive, to use the Marxist term, right? A thing that is like keeping you alive. I think that's I find that really moving, that's his response to this violence is to think, oh, I should make him a flute. Yeah.
I mean, there's also a bit about them playing quoits.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a bit where he shares a Coca-Cola they find with the boy, and he's basically like, you need to try this because this is like this is joy in a can. Basically, he like forces it on the boy. He's like, drink.
Yeah, he does.
You must live. You must find happiness.
They also, what's also probably the last can of Coke he's ever gonna find. So he's like, no, you have to try it. What I like as well is it's a repetition of, we didn't talk about it at the time, but like the boy also helps keep the man accountable to keeping himself alive, because he's doing some of the not to give JM credit ever, but he's doing some of the dad stuff where, like, when they're eating or whatever, he's always giving the boy more portions than he's taking, and the boy has to be like, no, like you promised, like, and if you start doing these little things, it builds to bigger lies and stuff like that. And that's kind of the a very well realized notion. And the can is the same, because the boy then reflexively after he tastes it is like, oh, you need to have some as well. They're propping each other up in some regard and keeping each other honest. Yeah. Spark of hope. It is. Yeah. I mean, look, really the last thing I have is
Well, hold on, back up slightly.
Yeah.
To the God stuff, that I haven't been able to find that sentence, but that sentence you were referencing about God, was God capitalized?
Yes.
Okay, I figured. Is there a reference in here to him being Catholic, or are we assuming that?
We're assuming it, but it's more or less in the text, like it's on that first page.
So if we're assuming that's the case, then I think, if I have my religious knowledge correct, that the Catholics are very much like, we are called by God to reproduce, and every child is chosen by God because this is our purpose on earth, is to reproduce in his name, something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So when he says, like, I am called by God to protect you, that also can just mean literally, I am your father, because to a Catholic it's the same thing, right? True.
Yeah. Although that's a good point. I guess the thing that some of the language that he uses earlier, where he's like, the boy is my warrant, like that's real Lives of the Saints stuff, which almost makes me think that, like, he's kind of positioning himself as like the last godly man on the planet sort of vibe.
Well, let me read this next bit and see what you think about that. This is my page 75. The boy didn't stir. He sat beside him and stroked his pale and tangled hair. Golden chalice. Good to house a god. God is not capitalized.
Sometimes I'm like, did McCarthy just not bother fixing that, or was that intentional? Because it really feels like he didn't let anyone edit this book. See, that's interesting. Yeah. I don't know what to make of that. Like, just legitimately, like, I have no idea what that means.
You could potentially read it as if the rest of the world is cannibals, then the dad is Adam, and this is one of Adam's kids that is the last bit of nobility on Earth. So he is the lowercase g god who was the last purity on the planet, maybe.
The boy?
Yeah.
My Genesis is not great, but that's Cain, Abel, and Seth, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I don't know if it's that, that direct, but saying this, talking about his hair, this is good to house a god, but then just a few pages ago, he was saying the God has called me to protect you, but now this is good to house a God, which kind of infers that he has a future greater than everything, which has to be from the purity, which has to be from the not a cannibal, is my reading.
Yeah, and that whatever future he has will be one without God, because God has kind of gone from the world. Like, because we get that earlier on where he talks about it being like, if God had spoken a word, this would not be the, whatever that line is. Then he talks about it as like the godless.
Yeah. Well, thinking about like the general charge of like Catholics, and this is like this is coming from my studies of reading about like medieval shit, by the way. But like your charge as like a Catholic is to prepare, this is analogous. In medieval times, it's to prepare for the the return of Christ in the end of the world and all that. But basically, those preparations are making the world good, right? Like spreading the word of God, building communities and hearths and
the
harmony.
Church.
Yeah, and like and peace and goodness and all that. I can see how he would abstract that all into this boy, the potential of this boy to be like pure of heart and innocent and output good into the world. And as you say, David, like in this land that God has clearly left, like this is the this is the most reasonable and realistic way to bring God back into this world, is through raising this kid. So maybe that's what he's talking about there. Golden chalice, for God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Something else to think about, and I'd have to go back and compare how much he talks about God prior to when he puts down the photograph, but I don't know that he says anything remotely close to this earlier. So it's almost like when he gave up his wife, then he took on the calling of, I have been called by God to protect you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's sort of what I was saying before, of like, this has become the justification he's produced to keep doing this. Like, he's sort of convincing himself that this is true. Now that his wife is gone, there has to be a reason why he's still looking after this kid, or still keeping this kid alive. And it's to keep God's mission, whatever the fuck that means, and however you read that. But like, yeah, that is kind of my understanding. I'm not questioning whether he actually believes it or not, but that's certainly, chronologically what has happened. Yes, I agree with that.
It's also the interesting picture of the that phrase that I had read, golden chalice good to house of God. Like, gold has meaning, and the word chalice also has a lot of meaning symbolically in religion, especially with the the cup of Christ. So I don't know if we got some Indiana Jones stuff going on here, or what that might mean. I don't mean it that literally. I was joking.
No, but like, yeah, you're not wrong. Like, I mean, I can't remember if McCarthy was Catholic or Christian. I'm pretty sure he was Catholic, but like the chalice is like central to Christianity, right? That's, you take the Eucharist in a chalice, and they're almost always gold. And often the chalice and how it's deployed and how mass is deployed tends to be how different sects of Christianity kind of separate themselves as well. So that there's also something there about like, and this is a long bow to draw, but I'm sure someone's written this paper, because if you've had a thought about this book, someone's written about it, is like the collapsing of all of the various like denominations and and traditions and all this stuff into just like the pure symbols, that like they no longer really have meaning, because there aren't people there to make those symbols have meaning, and for those symbols to make people. Instead, you're left with like, he remembers the symbols and the gestures of faith, but not necessarily the way that they are deployed, or what they actually mean. There's something there as well.
And in an attempt to like figure that out, he's actually just doing the most Christian thing of like actually like thinking about these things and living them, and like, and thinking about how they relate to his reality and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Having his own little Council of Nicaea in his head, being like, what is the significance of the gold chalice? Ah, the boy. Yes.
He's doing that the dream place in Pentiment, where you like talk to the jester and the theologian, and like you have all these arguments just to himself.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I want to move us along here, just I'm conscious of time. Did you have anything else on that, JM, or can we talk about the dog and the boy?
I am totally through my notes until I get to my monologue at the end.
Okay. So basically, seemingly in response to the trauma of seeing a man get shot in the face, the boy kind of like imagines that there's a dog following them through this neighborhood. And we get, he's like, yeah, and the boy's like, yeah, we're not going to kill it, right? Like, we're not going to eat it. This, despite the fact they are literally starving, and they should absolutely eat this dog. Just like, pragmatically, this is the correct thing to do. And he makes the dad promise that he won't do it. And then he says, this is sort of afterwards, the man reflecting on it. The dog that he remembers followed us for 2 days. I tried to coax it to come, but it would not. I made a noose of wire to catch it. There were 3 cartridges in the pistol, none to spare. She walked away down the road. The boy looked after her, and then he looked at me, and then he looked at the dog, and he began to cry and to beg for the dog's life, and I promised I would not hurt the dog. A trellis of a dog with the hide stretched over it. The next day it was gone. That is the dog he remembers. He doesn't remember any little boys. Because the boy also thinks he sees a little boy in the distance. But the man's like, yeah, there was no boy. Or is the boy real? I don't know. What do you guys make of this?
Well, I don't know if anything we just heard is real, because he just shot a bullet and just talked about how he only had 2 bullets left, and now it suddenly says he has 3.
No,
right?
no, he's saying the dog he remembers is from before. Like, before. Back when there were 3 cartridges in the gun. That's what the detail about the pistol cartridges is trying to communicate, is that it was, this was sometime, and the kid's remembering that, and kind of planting that memory here incorrectly. I'm projecting the memory here incorrectly. Yeah.
So there's a dog.
Well, there was a dog.
Well, yeah, there was a dog, but there also is a dog now.
Is there?
Is that okay? Is that not what he's? I thought that there was a dog, and you're saying that but there wasn't a kid.
Well, he's also saying that there wasn't a dog. The dog that he remembers followed us for 2 days. Like, I don't know, Pat.
Note that's.
I see.
I'm pretty sure the first thing that we get from the kid's perspective. That's on my page 84, and it says the boy was sitting on the steps when he saw something move at the rear, and it talks about the boy that he saw. Isn't this the first time that it's cut from the perspective of the dad, which would kind of infer that what we're seeing is not real because it's the first time that we've gone to the point of view of this character?
So I'm trying to think of how to really carefully say this. While it's from the boy's point of view, it is not from his subjectivity. This is the man telling us what happened to the boy. Does that make sense?
So we're supposed to believe it as truth.
I don't know. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, I think it complicates the question of whether it's true even further. Because it's kind of the man telling us what the boy experienced. So it might be wrong, or incorrect, or incomplete, or he's remembered it wrong. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Because he says there's no little boy. Like, you know?
But also, if the kid was hiding, then... Because like, right... on the bottom of page 85, there are people there. They were just hiding. So the dad can't both say there was no little boy and there were people they were hiding.
I know.
You know?
It's so confusing. But I think that's on
purpose.
Actually,
that was something that lingered in my mind as well, is that the man seemed pretty convinced that, there were just other people around. So I don't know why, why you reckon, no, there's no boy, shut the fuck up. Like, bro, ain't you just say that you thought there were other, it seems plausible to me.
Well, I read the whole thing is very, I don't think it was literally about a kid. I think the whole thing was supposed to be metaphorical about the child wanting companionship with similar aged kids and wanting that structure that no longer exists. So the dad insisting there was no boy is him actually trying to communicate, you do not have a future. There is no possible friendship for you in your life. Right?
But that is his aim, though. He's trying to get to a place with other kids, isn't he?
We don't know. He's just trying to get to the coast. Yeah.
I thought I remember him saying that, that's his, we'll get there and there'll be other kids and it'll be good for you or something like that.
Yeah, he's lying to make the kid feel better, right?
I
don't think he believes that.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
because multiple
I'm with
times,
the mom that he's blinding himself and he's just fully putting off death. That's
100%. Because at least 3 or 4 times he thinks to himself, fuck, what if I get to the coast and it's even worse? This is not a good plan, and he knows it. Yeah, no, I think he's fully lying to make the kid feel better. Dad stuff.
It is really interesting to note, because earlier he mentioned that there used to be people you would see all along the road, and they've only seen one small group of people so far, and maybe an imaginary dog and maybe an imaginary kid, but for the most part, these are the best. These two are the best survivors because they haven't had to resort to eating people, you know? They are the best survivors out of maybe all of humanity at this point because nobody else is still alive. except for the people who've resorted to cannibalism.
Well, to be F and to be B, we don't know for sure that the guys from the Mad Max War Party are cannibals. So
We also don't know if they've ever resorted to cannibalism.
look, it seems like they might. They're pretty comfortable with. They have sex slave. I'm just saying that doesn't necessarily imply that they're cannibals.
The Venn diagram does overlap a lot.
It's
with,
pretty
sex
close to being a
slaves and
circle.
cannibals.
It's pretty close to being a circle, but
don't want to assume.
Yeah. Fuck, this is a dire book. Yeah. Here, can I give you this little thought they have directly after that? Or that he has. He held the boy's hand and kicked up limbs and brush and got a fire going. This is when he starts to really realize that, like, they're probably gonna die. The wood was damp, but he shaved the dead bark off with his knife, and he stacked brush and sticks all about to dry in the heat. Then he spread the sheet of plastic on the ground and got the coats and blankets from the cart. And he took off their damp and muddy shoes, and they sat there in silence with their hands outheld to the flames. He tried to think of something to say, but he could not. He'd had this feeling before, beyond the numbness and the dull despair. The world shrinking down about a raw core of passable entities. The names of things slowly following those things into oblivion. Colors. The names of birds. Things to eat. Finally, the names of things one believed to be true. More fragile than he would have thought. How much was gone already? The sacred idiom shorn of its reference and so of its realities. Drawing down like something trying to preserve heat. In time to wink out forever. And this is like, you know, there it is here, in a big way, which is like, yeah, like, words make things real because it means you can think those things. And that, like, language is what produces that framework of being able to, like, think stuff. And that maybe, I'll probably save most of my hotology stuff for next time, but yeah, it's pretty grim, the way that this is kind of angled here by McCarthy. And yeah, this fear of like that as like the world collapses and there aren't people to know the names of things, those things then will disappear as well. Like they'll slowly follow. Like the names of the things slowly follow the things themselves into nothingness. The idea that like it's almost like it's like this what the first sentence of Neuromancer, where it's like the sky was the color of a TV tuned to a dead station or whatever it is. Like this idea that that everything is gone, even like the meaning of things is gone. That's how apocalyptic this situation is. And he's feeling that because he's like, we're gonna fucking die. Like we're literally starving to death right now.
It's not like we have to start from page 0 apocalypse. It's like this is like an obliteration apocalypse. This is like it's pretty dire.
And I started to say that earlier with all of the comparisons to Station 11 because they're not remotely similar apocalypses, because the Station 11 story was not an apocalypse. It was a major civilization reset. All of the resources were still there. The water wasn't poisoned, the trees weren't burnt, etc., etc. This is a completely, utterly different story of survival that I don't think can all be contextualized the same as Station 11 can.
Right, well, they are different subgenres, right? Like, this is pure, like, apocalypse fiction, like, pure survivor story. Whereas, like, I think that, yeah, you're right, like, Station 11 is much more of a combination of, like, the collapse and, like, as you're saying, like, the restoration, or indeed, like, the post-apocalypse in the capital P sense of post, right? You know, how do you rebuild what's gone? And yeah, I mean, like, in this moment, he's reflecting on, like, the collapse of the epistemological frameworks that make life feel real, which is that like the decay of sense memory, which is what he's experiencing, literally the decay of sense memory, if he is indeed going blind, maybe, we don't know, but that like the loss of the loss of knowledge is the end of the world, along with like as the world ends. It's sort of that tension between like sense memory and like rationalism almost.
He's being pretty irresponsible about preservation though, about trying to preserve it. Like he doesn't seem to get. He like there's a detail about how he's like he can't remember card games, so he just like makes like things up. It's like, come on, man! Like this is you're part of the problem right now. Of history disappearing.
Well, but I think it's greatly realized in that sentence though, because it's happening to him, right?
Mm. He also just can't remember.
Yeah, like,
yeah.
And this is where I really like the readings of the book that are like, yeah, like maybe this is how you become a fucking zombie, man. Is like you just everything goes from your brain really, really slowly, and then eventually you're just like a fucking blind guy wandering the wastes type of thing. Yeah, I use the word zombie there, not literally. I'm not saying that he's gonna go bite people or whatever, but like that's like a real concern I think that this man has that seems to be a founded concern. Yeah. All right, I have one more thing.
There's a
yes.
I've got a book shout out that I'm going to give real quick. A novel called Lucifer's Hammer, which there's a lot in here that's reminded me of it. It's one of my childhood favorites, but it's wow. It's an asteroid that slams into the Earth and causes an apocalypse, and it's a childhood favorite.
Oh, I've read this.
But
there you go.
Cool. Well, yeah. I mean, you have good taste. You have good taste. So,
I think it's probably because I'm studying the post-apocalypse. But go on.
But one of the story aspects is that like one of the academics in there is like, I must help preserve history, so he gets like all of the dictionaries and all of the medical books and all of the books about farming and farmers' almanacs and like all of that kind of the most basic needs of humanity, and he puts all of that in like the most sealed protective thing possible, and then puts it in the most sealed protective place possible. So even though no one might necessarily know where it is to find it, eventually someone will be able to dig it up and will be able to rebuild humanity off of what he has saved. So that was really interesting that, you know, one of you had just mentioned. Also, it's got the same exact thing of cannibals in it. Only there is enough in that story. There is enough food still around that they use cannibalism as a means to adhere you to the group. Because once all of these people have eaten human flesh, they can no longer leave the group. You can't be a part of normal society again. If you find a normal pocket of of people, you can't join that group because you have eaten people. So that's how the cannibals force people to join their little army and be a part of the group, is they're using cannibalism as a tool, not actually as a means of survival. So that's a really interesting kind of contrast to how this story uses cannibalism.
Yeah, that's the hazing that Armie Hammer had to do to join his fraternity.
Got him. And he's got a hammer in his name. Coincidence? I think not.
Do you know what I'm referencing, Darth? That how people think he's a cannibal?
I don't, but I also don't want to Google it. So
yeah, that's one that you shouldn't look up. Maybe on the note of like preservation stuff, right? That's like the whole thing. That's like the whole thing that the Station 11 TV show makes itself about, right? That's like, hey, if you want to hear us talk about that, go listen to our coverage. Because that's the entirety of that show, right? Like, you've got one person who's like, we got to get rid of the past, get rid of all this stuff, and then you've obviously got, within the Museum of History, you've got clerks that are trying to preserve everything. Yeah, we talked at length about that in that coverage. But just to say that that's like a question, is like, yeah, what do you choose to preserve? What's worth preserving? What's not worth preserving? And how do each how does each author think the end of the world and think the rebuilding of the world, and what their characters find value in preserving is how you can do a lot of meaningful character work in these books. Yeah, just to call out that connection as well. And A Candle for Leibowitz actually is another really, really great book, post-apocalypse novel that explores this kind of question, where you get 3 sections that are each from like 3 different time slices throughout the post-apocalypse. And there's I won't spoil it, but there's a thing that happens at the end of the second one that means that the third one is like they're rebuilding again, which is fascinating. Like all their knowledge goes away. So yeah, A Candle for Leibowitz. If you like thinking about religion and you like post-apocalypse, very good book. Yeah.
Okay, say the title of that again in English and not in Elvish.
It is a hard one. A Canticle for Leibowitz. If you Google it, it should, in theory, it's just spell it phonetically, and in theory, you should be able to find it.
I would have put that as one single word. That's like 87 characters.
A Canticle for Leibowitz. It's a sick book, actually. I really enjoyed it. Read it during my during the break. In like 2 days. Really hard to put down. Okay. Very quickly. I want to talk about the Mad Max guys, and then we can indulge Darth's insanity, whatever that is. Okay. So, sorry, JM, that keeps happening. It's gonna take a long time to fix my brain. All right. He woke in the morning and turned over in the blanket and looked back down the road through the trees the way they'd come in time to see the marchers appear 4 abreast, dressed in clothing of every description, all wearing red scarves at their necks, red or orange, as close to red as they could find. He put his hand on the boy's head. "Shh," he said. "What is it, Papa?" "People on the road. Keep your face down, don't look." No smoke from the dead fire, nothing to be seen of the cart. He wallowed into the ground and lay watching across his forearm. An army in tennis shoes tramping, carrying 3-foot lengths of pipe with leather wrappings, lanyards at the wrists. Some of the pipes were threaded through with lengths of chain fitted at their ends with every manner of bludgeon. They clanked past, marching with a swaying gait like wind-up toys. Bearded, their breath smoking through their masks. "Shh," he said, "shh." The phalanx following carried spears or lances tasseled with ribbons, the long blades hammered out of truck springs in some crude forge-up country. The boy lay with his face in his arms, terrified. They passed 200 feet away, the ground shuddering lightly, tramping. Behind them came wagons drawn by slaves in harnesses and piled with goods of war, and after that the women, perhaps a dozen in number, most of them pregnant, and lastly a supplementary consort of catamites, ill-clothed against the cold, and fitted in dog collars and yoked to each other. All passed on. They lay listening. "Are they gone, Papa?" "Yes, they're gone." "Did you see them?" "Yes." Oof. It's rough. It's rough. Did you guys, yeah, this is just a bunch of guys from Mad Max. Just on the note of language really quickly, because I sort of called this out at the start, but like when you read that, did you put together the word catamite, or did you end up looking that up?
Literally Googled it as you were speaking.
Okay.
Because you know how earlier you had said just try to infer meaning from the text as you're going instead of looking up every single word. I had naturally started doing that as we were going. So to me, that unequivocally was that's the food.
Okay.
Like first you got the women, that's for sex. Lastly comes the chained up, these are the food.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently not. Apparently it's just 2 different rows of sex.
Yeah. Pat, what about you?
Yeah, I think I didn't look it up. I just accepted that was a word and moved on.
Yeah. It's again, lifted kind of from Wolf. Obviously, a word before Gene Wolfe deployed it. But yeah, like, pretty ghastly. I don't look it up if you don't know what it means, but you can imagine for yourself, like, sort of the vibe of this. Like, there's something, you know, they're yoked together in dog collars. It's like a row of something walking. Yeah, pretty grim stuff. Yeah, I just wanted to call out that, like, this is another version of living, right? So we now have three. We've got, like, the boy and the man. We've got the cannibal guys in their truck, and then these guys who, yeah, are doing, like, Mad Max cosplay stuff, and keeping women, to impregnate them, and then, yeah, I won't piece it together. If you've read the book and you know what the word catamite means, you can figure out what they're doing with the kids. But yeah, pretty fucking dire.
Which now has me wondering about the purpose of the inclusion, because I think this is at least the third example of something being intentionally the opposite of nature, right? If one would assume that the attraction to the women is normal, then having this other group there is entirely abnormal. So it's reinforcing the point that this entire world is broken from the nature of reality, right?
Yeah, or well, use the word reality strangely. I would say, like, society and, like, decency and, like, morality, right? Yeah, like, the end of nature is also, like, the end of God, because God is so coupled with nature in, like, English folklore and history and the arts, you know, of the Western world. But yeah, like, it's I'm just gonna have to say this out loud. David, in the edit, just jumping in, the conversation we're about to have is very sensitive, and it particularly deals with the sexual assault of minors. If that's something you don't want to hear about, you can skip ahead by about 10 minutes or use the time codes down below to do so. But I just want to give everyone a minute, if you're listening or watching, to make that decision for yourself. Use the time codes. If that's not something you want to hear about, jump ahead by about 10 minutes. All right, back to the episode. Basically, the implication here is that, so, like, catamite is usually, in this classical sense, used to refer to young boys who are kept for sexual relationships with adults. The implication of this group is that they are having sex with these women who are giving birth, and then presumably these boys are kind of the sexual slaves of the man, the warband, and that potentially the children will also go on to in future become other sexual slaves. Yeah, it's a pretty haunting. But yes, just to put the whole thing together, just to clarify, it's pretty fucking grim.
And I think the inclusion is more about, like, it's not about just, like, shock value or about being grim to make, because like logically the end of the world doesn't just magically turn men into pedophiles, right? And you wouldn't naturally assume that, like, the pedophiles are the ones who end up surviving. So again, like, it seems to be such an intentional call out to a break of nature. Like, you know, he used the word autistic earlier when he was describing the darkness. Like, something is wrong with the DNA of humanity for kids to be used in this fashion, because it's totally unnatural.
Or it's holding up a very uncomfortably accurate mirror to actual nature and, like, you know, human behavior. And you know, like, yeah, like that is a valid point. Like, you know, it's like, is when all the pretensions of society are gone, like is that what people default to? I think it, not the specifics aren't like, that they are those things for a reason, but also like, what is it about this kind of perversion that like, is like pretty consistent across like, grimdark fiction, it's just general stuff about power that people seem to default to. I kind of think that it's like, it is a deliberate choice that I think is McCarthy is like thinking about like the basest human behaviors when there are no rules or laws or ethics, stuff like that. Yeah.
And I think my supporting argument would be looking historically at any like war period, especially like, in olden times when 2,000 years ago, whatever, like when they sack a city, like it, history talks about like they would take the women and then they would kill the children because they don't want that bloodline continuing. It's,
you don't have to go back that
typically,
far. Like that's the rape of Nanking in World War II. Like it's still a thing like that. If China could, they would do that again. Like, yes, you're right.
I guess that even reinforces the point. Like, I don't know that humanity writ large has like changed. It's still, for the most part, you take the women, you kill the men and the children, and so again, this is saying something very specific, that the godless future of this world keeps the children when the rest of the history of humanity didn't.
Yeah, and the word war is doing a lot there, right? Like they say, like they don't say spoils of war, but it's like things that they've dressed. They've got these red, like they're in a uniform, right? And
Roman, Roman, right, with the phalanx and the descriptions of everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be pointing to something.
Yeah, they're wearing masks, right? Yeah, I think it's definitely calling on Greek Roman history. And yeah, the sort of if the world is emptied of God, and this is being very literal, but I think it's worth saying because it might make this click for you. If the world is empty of God, then so too there's no God's army, and so these other armies are free to do what they will, and what they will is all of these baser instincts, these godless activities. And I also think that like McCarthy is doing something very deliberate here, where he's communicating to us that there are other structures being formed that are beyond the boy and the man, that they just have no visibility of whatsoever. That like social groups and social norms are still being produced and deployed for particular purposes. But because technology has collapsed, they can only see what's in front of them. In theory, and I'm not saying this is true, I'm not like foregrounding anything. I just want to like put a little bit of this in the water. In theory, the man is wrong about the potential state of the world. There may well still be pockets of society out there. There could be other countries out there. Like, we just don't know. And I think part of this is gesturing at, hey, there's a larger world going on here. It's something to maybe think about. Yeah, I'm not foregrounding anything. That's just, as I was talking about it, that thought kind of popped into my head.
And as you were talking, I realized that there probably is something in the fact that that in this passage that we're talking about, like, McCarthy used a word that most people are not going to know. Like, he didn't straight come out and say who these last slaves are and what their, disturbed purpose is. So he hid the fact from the audience, right? And made it so that you had to discover it yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is really common. Like, this is also that estrangement that I talked about earlier, right? really, really common in science fiction and science fantasy of the 80s, which is obviously what, McCarthy was writing. His contemporaries in the industry, they were all writing this stuff. Very common to pull out words like this from ancient Greek and use them to deploy and make things strange. It also probably let this get past an editor because, like, this is 2005, 2006, whenever this book came out. Google's only just gone public, right? It's not the biggest tool in the world. It's not that easy to look words up. Not everyone has a dictionary lying around, so it's deliberately not a word people would know. And not a word that's easy to, like, this probably isn't in your common, like, Oxford English Dictionary, right? So yes, I completely agree. Yeah, it's a word that most people don't know that's chosen because people wouldn't know it. And it adds to that evocation that I often talk about. Yeah.
McCarthy wants everyone to be as disturbed as him.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, gotcha.
Yeah. Him and Gene Wolfe both out here being like, yeah, I'm going to really make you fucking hate reading my stuff. Okay. Darth, god damn it. JM, you have the floor.
Can't get rid of it. It's part of who I am.
It's going to take a while, but I'll get there. It's because I need to change your nickname on the server. That'll really help me out. Because every time I look at when you're talking, I glance at the left, I see the name. Yeah, I know that you had something that you wanted to, some meta reading that you wanted to put forward?
I think what I'm going to do, given how long we've been going, I think that I'm going to give this as our lead out and give everyone time to kind of mull this over before our next recording, because this entire little monologue that I wrote, which really is only like 4 paragraphs, but is basically me saying this entire book is pointless and why should we continue? So that will be a very good lead in to the next recording.
Ah, God. Okay. Well, that's fine because I have some Derrida that I'm bringing next time, so this will be good. Wait, was that it? Or were you going to say something?
No, I was going to wait for you to wrap up whatever you wanted to wrap up first, and then I'll go through.
The only other thing I had in my notes was, yeah, where we leave them is basically they abandon the car and they walk off into the snow because they're literally starving to death. Was the only thing I had. Yeah. Anything from you, Pat?
Even though they've been pushing south, they're also like maybe going to freeze to death too. That's also,
yeah, like
the snow is falling and they've lost like some of their blankets and stuff, I think.
Yeah, nuclear winter is kind of the vibe that I get. All right, it's all you. What you got?
Okay. So leading into this, I think it is the world building that led me here, to the point where I think that because the story is pointless, it also kind of makes the book pointless. The land being burnt and the water poisoned, the planet can no longer sustain life. It's already been years and all of the supplies are scavenged, and when the cannibals run out, they will then eat each other, and humanity itself will become extinct. One of the main themes so far is what is the point of living when the world isn't worth living in? For myself, the author did too good of a job of ingraining that message in the reader. I have no hope for a happy ending, or even peaceful deaths. The character's knowledge of absolute hopelessness has extended outside the diegesis and has corrupted me as well. I see nothing new revealed of humanity, nature, or myself, unless the sole point of the story is to force me to question the point of everything. If I have to define the point of life, I choose the word fulfillment. We eat and mate to fulfill our biological needs, we commune to fulfill our social needs, we create to fulfill artistic needs, seeking a balanced, fulfilled life and its byproduct of happiness. But in the book, the landscape is ash, civility with it. Even the archetype of the innocent, hopeful child has shattered under the assuredness of death. Mother Earth is a smoldering corpse, and the best hope for our pitiful protagonists is to freeze to death in their sleep. I see no chance of this story fulfilling me. And if that's the purpose of life, then there's no point in a book when even the characters inside of it are begging to put the book down.
Oh, I feel like you've justified the point pretty good right there.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a pretty good explanation of why the book is good. It's impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the thing for me that's like the most, that I take away from this book is like, the big feelings of hopelessness, basically. Like, it's so intense. I imagine that's probably why it sticks with a lot of other people as well. Yeah.
Yeah. It like drenches you as you read it. And like it's and to be fair, like a lot of McCarthy's work has this quality where you just completely fall into the book. I won't respond now because I will have to think about the way that I want to utilize that feeling that you're talking about, because that's also something that On the Beach really addresses directly and like thinks through really, really fully. And like, yeah, that's like one of the purposes of thinking through. That's one of the outputs of apocalypse and post-apocalypse fiction is thinking through why are we alive? Why do we do what we do? And what happens when the vectors for doing those things start to collapse, and the structures that allow us to do those things start to collapse? How do you find purpose and meaning? Yeah, and McCarthy's response to that is convince yourself that you're on a mission from God, even though it was just your dead wife's fault. So really happy thought to end on.
Really, that is really ironic because in our situation, I am on a mission from you, so you are playing the part of God.
As it should be. All right, well, that was dark. Okay, yeah, look, I mean, I was going to say plugs, but like, it's, I mean, yeah, James, do you have you ready to plug the new thing yet, or no? This will go out in about 2 weeks.
No, I've got
not there yet.
Yeah, I was really hoping, but also I've gotten I'm working on a new channel, and the first big video I have gone full artistic. So I am like really enjoying playing with like what camera angles will work with, helping sell this theme and like that kind of stuff. So it's it went way deeper than I initially had intended, but also I'm having a lot of fun, so I'm not rushing it. But I'm in the last read through of the script, and I've already started filming several things, so it's all in progress.
Okay, well, that'll be linked in the show notes when it's out. I'm sure we'll talk about it when that does happen. Pat, you got anything you want to plug? Anything coming up?
Nope.
Links to where you can find all of us down below. Just a really quick shout out. Me and my buddy Cam have spent the better part of the last week rebuilding the Underink website. So if you want to go there and check it out, we're doing a thing. It's a bit of an experiment where we're essentially curating from different authors and creatives their views on particular genres. And then we're coupling that with the books and the things that we're selling. So there's a bit more to kind of chew on. It's not just a storefront. And it's been super fun. And we just deployed the new landing page and some of the test product pages last night, and they look incredible. So go check that out. We're still working through a lot of how it's going to actually function, but yeah, go check that out. It really helps. Helps us out. And you can get stuff. If you want a t-shirt, you can grab my books. There's a nice tote bag that we now sell, which is really cool. Anyway, if you'd like to support us, you can head to patreon.com/ZeroIndent. Supporting us at the $5 tier unlocks the bonus episodes of this show, where we watch and talk about supplementary materials. We will be watching The Road film and talking about it on the Patreon. So if that's something you want to hear, go over there and sign up. Free Patreon subscribers gain access to the Zero Indent Patreon chat where you can send us questions and ideas for future episodes directly, or indeed you can DM me on Patreon or Blue Sky. Any support you can give us helps us keep making thoughtful independent media criticism, an important practice to preserve in an age where context is defined by algorithms. We appreciate all of our Patreon subscribers. Help us to continue to make the shows and articles that shape Zero Indent. Hey, we did it. Fuck, what a dire... What a dire episode. It's just the end of the show. It's not the end of the world, but boy, it sure feels like it, doesn't it? Zero Indent is an independent publication dedicated to studying works of genre fiction, brought to you by our subscribers. Head to patreon.com/zeroindent to learn more and consider supporting us. Our theme song is The Swan by Alon Peretz. Our podcast cover art is by Crystal Hatay. Everything else is written, directed, and edited by me, DC McNeil. You can find our merch and books at underink.press and everything we do at zeroindent.com. What a dire episode. It's just the end of the show. It's not the end of the world, but boy, it sure feels like it, doesn't it? Good stuff.
Hey, you got recognized out in public.
Hey, that's something.
You're a celebrity now. Congratulations.
I'm internet famous. It's not the first time that's happened, but I'm gonna pretend that it's novel. It used to happen a lot.
It's like, I'm kind of a big deal.
No, like particularly in Melbourne, where it's like the podcasting community was quite small in like the early kind of like 2015, 2016. Yeah, we'd get recognized a lot when we were in Melbourne. Fuck, that was like a decade ago. Jesus.